Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Could still occasionally communicate with him. But Jiraiya was the only one who wasn't on the same page as him. This guy was always obsessed with the child of prophecy and world peace. After the Second Great Ninja War, he left the village and his duties as a ninja, stubbornly staying in the Land of Rain for 3 years before returning. If the top members of this Akatsuki organization were all Jiraiya's disciples, then his plan might not be very effective, considering that these people could very well be just as stubborn as Jiraiya, all dreaming of world peace. In Denzo's eyes, world peace was just like the will of fire, merely a slogan. As long as ninjas existed, there would be no peace in this world. Instead of wasting time thinking about such idealistic notions, it was better to focus on securing tangible benefits for the village and himself, climbing to a higher position in the process. His dream was to become the Hokage and lead Hidden Leaf Village to dominate the ninja world. As Denzo continued reading the intelligence reports, his attention was drawn to information about a lesser-known Akatsuki member named Byakuya. Byakuya didn't hold a high position and wasn't particularly powerful, but his methods were more in line with what a ninja should be, efficient and decisive. His approach to many matters resonated with Denzo, who subconsciously nodded in approval. Denzo decided to use Byakuya as a breakthrough point to infiltrate the Akatsuki. If he could reach an agreement with Byakuya, he might be able to secretly influence the future direction of the organization. Denzo wasn't worried about whether he could buy Byakuya's loyalty. Given Byakuya's personality, he was likely marginalized within Akatsuki and probably harbored significant resentment towards the leader, Yahiko. Denzo believed that by providing Byakuya with enough resources for his development, Byakuya would naturally turn against Yahiko when the time was right, becoming a pawn for Denzo in the Land of Rain. With this in mind, Denzo turned to Ryuma before issuing the order. Ryuma, find Byakuya and make him one of ours. Hearing Byakuya's name, Ryuma was momentarily stunned. He knew Denzo would be interested in Akatsuki and might even reach out to its leader, Yahiko, but why choose Byakuya, who lacked strength and status? However, as a member of Root, he did not question Denzo's authority. He could only nod in agreement and obediently carry out the task. Chapter 44, Byakuya vs. Ryuma. Following their venture into the black market, Byakuya maintained clandestine surveillance on Shigure for several more days. Concurrently, he employed a strategic method to control a faction of rogue ninjas situated outside the village, employing a mixture of incentives and threats, enticing them with the promise of secret techniques and mastery over curse seals. This ensured they remained vigilant regarding Shigure's activities. But why didn't he extend an invitation for them to join the Akatsuki as official members? It could be attributed to the rarity of individuals who resonate with Yahiko's ideology among the ninja ranks. Such resonance is primarily found in those hailing from the Land of Rain, individuals who have intimately experienced the ravages of war and misfortune. Only they can truly comprehend and empathize with each other's plight, willingly aligning themselves with the Akatsuki. Once beyond the borders of the Land of Rain, however, Yahiko's ideals lose their allure. Just as the princess of a prominent ninja clan in the first ninja village cannot fathom the struggles of a fallen nation's remnants, ninjas from disparate villages struggle to grasp each other's motivations or assimilate seamlessly into a unified organization. Their desires and aspirations differ vastly, unless faced with a common existential threat compelling unity. Above all, Byakuya sought to cultivate a force exclusively under his control, enabling him to operate autonomously without the need for oversight or disclosure to other senior members. This way, even in the event of a significant upheaval, he would possess the means to rise again. It had become his modus operandi to always have a contingency plan in place before taking action. During this period, Conan embarked on numerous visits to nearby towns and villages, meticulously recording the prices of goods and fulfilling requests pro bono as a form of restitution for the harm they inadvertently caused to ordinary folk during their wanderings. Their proficiency in petty theft had been their lifeline, preventing Conan, Nagato, and Yahiko from succumbing to starvation in the wilderness before establishing the Akatsuki. As she made her way back to the designated rendezvous point, Conan caught sight of Byakuya, straw dangling from his lips, a faint flicker of resignation in her eyes. Byakuya remained as enigmatic as ever, scarcely visible throughout the day. Furthermore, despite being tasked with managing investments, he single-handedly oversaw the investment sector, leaving Conan in the dark regarding his expenditure of funds. "Conan-senpai, you're finally back." Byakuya greeted Conan quietly as he trailed behind her. At that moment, Conan couldn't help but inquire, "Byakuya, where have you been all this time? How much money do we have left?" "It's a secret." Byakuya nonchalantly replied, his hand lazily resting on the back of his head. "I went to procure funds for bribing the Jonin of Hidden Rain Village. Our organization's covert operations within the Land of Rain rely heavily on their assistance to maintain discretion." Bribing Jonin. Conan found herself somewhat at a loss for words. Were Jonin truly so susceptible to bribery? Ninjas, provided they lacked moral scruples, were indeed susceptible to manipulation for monetary gain. Yet, those lacking moral scruples didn't always deliver on their promises. Even when compensated, it would be a squandering of resources. Nevertheless, she pondered, Byakuya wouldn't part with funds without a purpose. It seemed more plausible that Byakuya had diverted the funds for his own use. However, Byakuya likely wasn't lacking in resources either. Like herself, he possessed the capability to mass-produce explosive tags. Just as Conan was about to interject, Byakuya swiftly gestured for silence, his demeanor shifting to one of seriousness as he indicated the trees flanking the road. In the next instant, accompanied by the distinctive sound of air being sliced, kunai adorned with explosive tags hurtled between Byakuya and Conan, detonating upon impact. Amidst the ensuing blaze and smoke, the two were compelled to retreat, their attention drawn to the approaching four-man ninja squad. Clad in somber black garb and concealing their visages behind animal masks, the team exuded an aura reminiscent of ruthless assassins. Following a brief standoff, the squad launched another assault. One of them charged headlong wielding a short sword, while the remaining trio strategically flanked, deploying shurikens entwined with steel wire to ensnare Byakuya and Conan. Simultaneously, they brandished kunai adorned with explosive tags once more. For average Jonin, contending with such a coordinated onslaught would prove formidable. However, for Conan and Byakuya, masters of the paper style technique, evading the traps was a matter of simplicity. Transforming their forms into myriad sheets of paper, Conan ascended skyward, observing their adversaries from above. A deluge of shurikens cascaded like raindrops, swiftly dispersing the four-man team. A shared glance conveyed a palpable sense of trepidation in the eyes of the assailants before they swiftly retreated in the direction from whence they came, swiftly vanishing into the dense foliage. Observing the fleeing ninjas in the distance, Conan furrowed her brow. She struggled to fathom why they had been targeted. Had the Akatsuki drawn the ire of unknown adversaries, or was the assault directed specifically at Byakuya? "Byakuya, do you recognize these people?" Byakuya certainly did. With their animal masks and distinctive combat maneuvers, they bore the unmistakable hallmark of Hidden Leaf Village's Anbu Black Ops, although discerning whether they hailed from the regular Anbu or the clandestine route division posed a challenge. However, in the presence of Conan, Byakuya merely shook his head, feigning ignorance. "I'm unfamiliar with them as well. But we shall extract the answers if we want to know once we capture and interrogate them." Conan hesitated for a fleeting moment before assenting to Byakuya's proposition. This band of ninjas clearly surpassed the capabilities of typical rogue operatives. Ordinary wanderers lacked such precision and prowess. If this encounter was anything but coincidental, if indeed they targeted the Akatsuki, it was imperative to pursue the truth and unravel the mystery. Exchanging determined glances, Byakuya and Conan surged into the dense undergrowth, hot on the heels of their retreating enemy. Shortly after Conan departed, Byakuya, who remained stationary, cast a cold gaze towards the nearby foliage. "Stop hiding like a bitch. I've been aware of your presence for quite some time. Heck, are you even trying to hide?" He had detected the concealed adversary during the recent attack by the ninja squad. However, their chakra signature was subtle, prompting him to withhold acknowledgement of their existence until Conan had left. After a brief pause, Ryoma Burame emerged from the bushes, meeting Byakuya's unwavering stare. He had initially contemplated ways to isolate Conan and Byakuya, but he hadn't anticipated Byakuya remaining behind alone, presenting an opening for dialogue. "I am." Ryoma began, but before he could utter another word, Byakuya sprang into action. With uncanny speed, he materialized paper-style shurikens, hurtling them towards Ryoma's visage. Ryoma narrowly evaded the projectiles, his expression morphing into one of heightened seriousness. Byakuya's prowess far exceeded the intelligence reports that pegged him as a mere chunin. The information gleaned from the black market was evidently unreliable. Summoning poison bugs from beneath his sleeve, Ryoma released them, enveloping the paper shurikens in a dense cloud akin to a smoke screen. Seizing the opportunity, Ryuma lunged towards Byakuya. Simultaneously, the paper shurikens, now infused with the poison bugs, erupted into flames. Amidst the ensuing conflagration and shockwave, the poison bugs plummeted to the earth one by one. Observing this development, Ryuma broke into a cold sweat. Previous encounters had unveiled Byakuya's status as a formidable jounin, far surpassing the norm. How could the Akatsuki, an ostensibly obscure organization, produce such a master? However, Ryuma remained resolute. His trump card lay in his taijutsu prowess. Discarding the gloves that impeded him from inadvertently harming his comrades, Ryuma exposed his purple palms and activated the teleportation jutsu, materializing beside Byakuya. Without a backward glance, Byakuya intercepted Ryuma's strike, effortlessly repelling him several meters with a single blow. Although propelled backward, a faint smile crept onto Ryuma's lips. In his estimation, he had emerged victorious in this confrontation. All that remained was to assist in detoxification before brokering negotiations with Byakuya. However, in the ensuing moment, the smile on Ryuma's lips froze abruptly. Chapter 45, Is This Your Attitude? As a member of the Aburame clan of Hidden Leaf Village, Aburame Ryuma has been dedicated to raising venomous insects since he was a child and has honed a profound understanding of various secret techniques associated with them. One of his most formidable abilities is the phosphorus destruction insect technique. Years of nurturing venomous insects have intertwined his own flesh and blood with theirs, enabling him to swiftly incapacitate foes by allowing the venomous insects to infiltrate their flesh with a mere touch of his palm. Despite having made physical contact with his opponent just moments ago, Ryuma was confounded as to why the phosphorus destruction insect technique had failed. With no time to contemplate this, Byakuya had already affixed several explosive tags to him, primed to detonate at a moment's notice. While Ryuma possessed the capability to remove the explosive tags from his body, he hesitated to do so. It wasn't the explosive tags themselves that posed the real threat to his life, but rather Byakuya, who wielded them. The enemy's strength had already surpassed the limits of what he could effectively counter. Ryuma, swallowing nervously, stuttered, "Byakuya, I'm not your enemy." "I know." Byakuya nodded lightly. He politely took a few steps back, clapped his hands to shake off the venomous insect corpses on them, and relaxed his expression as he looked at the sweaty Ryuma. He couldn't confirm Ryuma's specific identity just now. After seeing the phosphorus destruction insect technique, he had already confirmed the opponent's identity. The opponent should be one of the many subordinates of Denzo Shimura, the Anbu root of Hidden Leaf Village. The method to counter the phosphorus destruction insect technique was also very simple. As long as he covered himself with a layer of sealing jutsu in advance, he could isolate the invasion of the venomous insects. Even if this layer of protection failed, he could use the dance of the Shikigami to avoid them. Byakuya was more concerned about why Denzo Shimura would target him. Could it be that Denzo noticed Nagato's Rinnegan in advance and wanted to seize it by force? Or did the existence of the Akatsuki trigger the interests of the root organization? Upon hearing Byakuya's words, Ryuma breathed a sigh of relief. "Since you know my purpose, why did you still attack me?" "You attacked first, insect boy." Byakuya corrected Ryuma's statement and continued, "Before taking action, you should consider the consequences of failure and whether you can bear them. However, I'm in a good mood today and don't intend to kill you immediately. Now, state your intentions, and perhaps I will spare you, ninja of the Aburame clan." After having his identity exposed and his life threatened, Ryuma could only reluctantly state his intentions. "Byakuya, I am an assistant to the Hokage, and he sent me to help you." "An assistant to the Hokage, sent to help us?" Upon receiving this information, Byakuya looked at Ryuma with a skeptical gaze, not taking his eyes off him. "And you just said Denzo directly, and what's with this assistant to the Hokage nonsense? Could you possibly be working for Toharu Utatane and Hamura Midikoto?" Ryuma didn't know what Byakuya was thinking. Seeing Byakuya's suspicious gaze, he hurriedly explained. "After hearing about the deeds of the Akatsuki, assistant to the Hokage is determined to help the Akatsuki develop and let more people experience peace." "Since when did the root become an organization fond of peace?" Byakuya sneered inwardly but maintained a calm face. "So, that's your reason for the ambush?" Upon hearing this, Ryuma fell silent. Perhaps he himself felt that this explanation was a bit far-fetched, but being someone who usually enjoys killing and arson, he is not skilled in communication. At a critical moment, Byakuya broke the awkward atmosphere. Clearing his throat, he began to talk. "I am different from others in the organization. Don't talk to me about ideals of world peace. Just tell me what benefits assistant to the Hokage can bring us and what we need to give in return." Ryuma also disliked formalities, so he got straight to the point. "We can secretly provide ninjutsu and weapons as support. In exchange, We want the friendship of the Akatsuki. The friendship of the Akatsuki. It seems that the intentions of this assistant to the Hokage are not small. From Ryuma's words, Byakuya could roughly guess Denzo's intentions, investing in the Akatsuki to create chaos within the borders of the Land of Rain, benefiting Hidden Leaf Village. Ryuma awkwardly smiled. At least for now, the Akatsuki cannot offer us much value. If the Akatsuki does not intend to accept assistance, we will leave immediately. Facing Ryuma's tactics of retreat, Byakuya snorted coldly. I accept the goodwill of assistant to the Hokage on behalf of the Akatsuki. Unlike others in the Akatsuki, forming a bond with me will not disappoint assistant to the Hokage. Seeing progress in the situation, Ryuma's face lit up with a smile. Carefully taking out 2 scrolls from his pocket, Ryuma tossed them before Byakuya while explaining. These are 2 scrolls prepared by assistant to the Hokage. One is a storage scroll containing assistant to the Hokage's goodwill. The other is a summoning contract. After you sign the contract with blood, it will facilitate communication between you and the assistant to the Hokage. Byakuya took the storage scroll and the summoning contract, carefully inspected them, and nodded satisfactorily. Looks like you're sensible enough not to tamper with them. Ryuma smiled. Assistant to the Hokage sincerely wants to cooperate with the Akatsuki. Speaking of which, the leader of the Akatsuki, Lord Yahiko, has quite a history with our Lord Jiraiya. In the end, we're all family. If you were truly family, you wouldn't have deliberately kept Conan away. But it's also a correct choice not to cooperate with foreign ninja. As Byakuya spoke, Ryuma remembered his own superior, Denzo. Shaking his head to dispel the absurd thought, Ryuma turned to Byakuya. Byakuya, my mission is complete. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. With that said, Ryuma turned and walked towards the forest. Every moment spent with Byakuya had filled him with immense pressure, making him eager to leave. At that moment, Byakuya's voice rang out from behind. What did you just call me? Ryuma turned to look at Byakuya, somewhat puzzled. Byakuya, isn't that your name? Byakuya frowned, showing a dangerous look in his eyes. Your superior, assistant to the Hokage, directly interacts with me. You just call me Byakuya? Don't you think you should add something more, like freaking honorifics? Do you address assistant to the Hokage by his name alone? Who are you to compare yourself to Lord Denzo? Though Ryuma had some grievances in his heart, considering their recent battle, he spoke sincerely. Lord Byakuya, may I take my leave now? Upon hearing this, Byakuya nodded, indicating that Ryuma could leave. Just because he is 12 years old doesn't mean he doesn't understand politics. Chapter 46, Denzo's and Byakuya's thought process. After getting permission from Byakuya, Ryuma, who had been sweating profusely for a long time, left. At that moment, he finally understood why Lord Denzo had chosen Byakuya out of all the high-ranking members of the Akatsuki. It was because in some ways, Byakuya's behavior was exactly the same as Lord Denzo's. The recent meeting brought back memories of his first encounter with Lord Denzo. Byakuya was essentially the dark side of the Akatsuki. After calming his emotions, Ryuma headed towards the nearby root base without looking back, ready to fully inform Lord Denzo about the details of the previous meeting. As for that root team, they had already been discarded as pawns. It was always necessary to sacrifice some useless ninjas to carry out valuable missions in order to fulfill Lord Denzo's plan and protect Hidden Leaf Village. This was also the reason for the existence of the root. Soon, Ryuma encountered Lord Denzo in a dense forest. At first, Lord Denzo furrowed his brow upon seeing Ryuma return alone. However, after hearing Ryuma's report, a subtle smile formed at the corner of his mouth. Sacrificing 4 middle-level root ninjas was nothing. There were as many pawns as needed. Reaching an agreement with Byakuya of the Akatsuki was the top priority, as it was related to his future plans. Recalling the recent experience, Ryuma couldn't help but voice a reminder. Lord Denzo, isn't cooperating with this Byakuya too dangerous? Not only does he conceal the combat power of elite Jonin, but he also guessed her intentions. And considering his age, isn't he a bit too young? Glancing at his old subordinate, Lord Denzo chuckled lightly, saying, age and combat power can both be disguised. These are not important. What's crucial is that Byakuya has ambition and the ability to realize it. As long as we allow him to continue growing, he will eventually be able to threaten Hanzo's position. At that time, whether the Akatsuki replaces Hanzo or is eliminated by Hanzo, it will be of no concern to us. Don't forget, our goal is merely to sow chaos in the Land of Rain. Upon hearing this, Ryuma nodded slightly. With Lord Denzo's abilities, easily handling a high-ranking operative lurking within the Akatsuki was not a challenge but merely his sensitivity and concern. He worried whether Byakuya would truly rise to become a threat to the root and the Akatsuki. Now, it seemed that as long as Lord Denzo was around, such a scenario was unlikely to occur. However, Ryuma forgot one premise, that Denzo was genuinely for Hidden Leaf Village, not merely using it as an excuse to pursue his own interests. After Ryuma left, Byakuya found a random spot to sit down and began examining the benefits left by Ryuma. The seals on the storage scrolls were simple and easily deciphered by Byakuya. Inside were several boxes of finely crafted kunai, shuriken, and wires, along with a few scrolls recording C-rank ninjutsu, and 3 million ryo in cash. Byakuya roughly estimated the value to be worth around 10 million ryo, which was equivalent to one-third of Asuma's bounty or completing 10 S-rank missions. Considering they were still in wartime, the actual value of these supplies was even higher. Thinking this, Byakuya couldn't help but marvel at Hidden Leaf Village's wealth. The route was not just a training institution within the Anbu, it could offer such lavish gifts. No wonder every time during the Ninja World War, everyone collectively targeted Hidden Leaf Village. On one hand, Hidden Leaf Village was too strong, needing to be dragged down to prevent it from taking advantage. On the other hand, Hidden Leaf Village was too wealthy. Even if defeated, they might still extract some reconstruction funds from Hidden Leaf Village. After placing the supplies back into the storage scrolls, Byakuya opened the scroll containing the summoning contracts. There were only a few names on the scroll, likely the previous owners of the summoning beasts. Byakuya wondered if they were still alive, or if they had become cannon fodder in the Ninja World War. After carefully inspecting and confirming there were no traps, Byakuya dripped blood onto the summoning contract and performed the summoning jutsu. The summoned creature was a bird of prey, convenient for delivering messages. Unfortunately, unlike other special summoning creatures, it lacked combat abilities and only had the advantage of fast flight speed. After releasing the summoning jutsu, Byakuya put the 2 scrolls into his backpack and fell into contemplation. Until today, he had never expected to establish a connection with Denzo and even reach an agreement of mutual assistance, becoming partners who utilized each other. However, since Denzo took the initiative to offer gifts, Byakuya had no reason to refuse. From Ryuma's words, it seemed that Byakuya and Denzo were aligned in short-term interests, both hoping for the rise of the Akatsuki within the Land of Rain. The only difference was that Denzo aimed to cause trouble for the Hokage and Hanzo and keep the Land of Rain in turmoil. On the other hand, Byakuya's goal was to replace Hidden Rain Village with Akatsuki. After all, the Akatsuki would inevitably clash with the Hidden Rain Village sooner or later. To prevent the event of the Akatsuki being annihilated, as in the original plot, he had to prepare to absorb the Hidden Rain Village in advance. Moreover, by establishing contact with Denzo, he could easily obtain information about Hidden Leaf Village and the route, bringing the prospect of a win-win situation closer. Of course, this win-win was for him to win twice. Before long, Conan arrived with the bodies of root ninjas, her expression grim. While pursuing the root ninjas, she saw Byakuya, clone, stepping into a trap set by them. His body was engulfed in flames and blown to pieces. It was what she thought. At that moment, Conan was completely stunned, thinking Byakuya was dead. After killing all the root ninjas, she belatedly realized that Byakuya wasn't that weak. He had been following her from the beginning, but it was only a paper clone. Seeing Conan's furious expression, Byakuya's face gradually became serious. Conan-senpai, do you remember what I said during our first mission together? I just want to show you the true face of the ninja world. Even this is just the tip of the iceberg. Hearing this, Conan fell silent. She did recall this statement. Byakuya was doing it for her own good, constantly training her to experience the cruelty of the ninja world. But Conan still felt something was amiss. It had been several months. Why hadn't it ended yet? After prompting Conan to reflect and successfully diverting the topic to the deception of the paper clone, Byakuya looked towards the bodies of the root ninjas beside Conan. Conan-senpai, have you figured out the identities of these attackers? Conan nodded, rummaging through the bodies of the root ninjas and retrieving several tokens with Hidden Stone's village markings. I suspect they are ninjas from Hidden Stone's village. Then, Conan recalled her previous experience in Hidden Grass Village before rubbing her chin. They could also be ninjas from Hidden Grass Village? They've disguised themselves before. Conan-senpai's intelligence is almost as good as nothing. Byakuya joked as he walked to the side of the root ninja's body, inspecting it before smirking at Conan. These people are neither from Hidden Grass Village nor Hidden Stones Village. They are all members of Hidden Leaf Villages and Boo. Chapter 47, Yahiko's Speculation and Boo of Hidden Leaf Village? That's impossible. Jiraiya-sensei. Upon learning from Byakuya that they were attacked by Hidden Leaf Village ninja, Conan furrowed her brows tightly, exclaiming it was impossible. It wasn't that Conan didn't believe Byakuya, it was just that the conclusion that the attackers were from Hidden Leaf Villages and Boo seemed too exaggerated. Even if Hidden Leaf Village wanted to disguise themselves to incite war, they wouldn't specifically choose the Akatsuki. Even if the Akatsuki were attacked, they didn't have the capability to start a war. Moreover, She, Yahiko, and Nagato's sensei was Jiraiya. If he wanted to do something, he could easily contact the Tri. Hearing this, Byakuya sighed lightly. Conan-senpai, you're still too naive. After experiencing so much, your way of thinking is still so one-sided. You're still too naive. Being repeatedly chided for her naivety nearly made Conan lose her temper. She knew she had some shortcomings in certain aspects, but she had been working hard to correct them and could distinguish whether an enemy was really an enemy in disguise. But Byakuya always insisted on calling her naive, as if she were freaking child. Clearly, she was the older one here for Sage of Six Paths' sake. Byakuya didn't continue to toy with Conan's mentality and began to explain. Conan-senpai, it's natural that Lord Jiraiya wouldn't lay hands on the Akatsuki, but Jiraiya can't represent the entire Hidden Leaf village. Do you still remember how Nagato became an orphan? Those Hidden Leaf village ninjas could even attack their allies. They, just like Jiraiya, are Hidden Leaf village's ninjas. However, Hidden Leaf village is a large village with tens of thousands of ninjas, with different voices inside, some supporting Jiraiya, and naturally, some opposing Jiraiya and wanting to cause trouble for him. We encountered the latter today. As for why I'm certain they are Hidden Leaf village ninjas, it's because I just fought with their leading Jonin, who used a secret technique of Hidden Leaf village's Barame clan. It's hard to deceive with such a technique. At first, Conan listened attentively with a learning attitude to Byakuya's words. But in the end, when she heard that Byakuya identified the attacker's identity through a secret technique, she couldn't help but roll her eyes. So you're not much stronger than me after all. However, Byakuya's analysis of Hidden Leaf village did teach Conan a lot, so she decided not to dwell on this point. At this moment, Conan seemed to remember something important. Byakuya, how should we handle these bodies next? Of course, we leave it to our dear leader, Yahiko, to decide. If possible, we can also directly hand them over to Jiraiya. As one of the legendary Sannin, he must have a way to handle this matter. Byakuya gave an unhelpful suggestion while teasing Wink. Conan-senpai, don't always make things difficult for this small member of the organization. I'm not all-powerful either. I can't help here. Conan ignored Byakuya's sarcastic remark and fell into thought. Reporting to Yahiko was a given, but it might not be a good idea to hand the bodies over to Jiraiya-sensei. Moreover, the three of them hadn't contacted Jiraiya-sensei for many years, and the toad they used for communication died in an accident. Otherwise, if they encountered an unsolvable problem, they would still seek help from their sensei. However, when mentioning the identity of their sensei, Conan glanced subconsciously at Byakuya beside her. In a certain sense, Byakuya did resemble their sensei. The Akatsuki couldn't have developed to their current extent without Byakuya's help, much like their sensei's teaching. But she always felt that there was a mysterious veil surrounding Byakuya. The closer she got, the less she could understand Byakuya's true nature, and instead, she began to feel confused. Sensing Conan's gaze, Byakuya smiled knowingly, his eyes filled with calculations of the upcoming events. After the minor incident during their mission, Byakuya and Conan returned to the Akatsuki base. Comparing it to their last outing, the number of buildings within the base had increased significantly. It wouldn't be impossible for it to develop into a town or tourist attraction during holidays. Entering the office with Conan, Byakuya tossed the mission report before Yahiko and sat on a nearby chair. Yahiko didn't get angry. Instead, he skimmed through several pages of the mission report and nodded lightly. Byakuya, Conan, you both did well this time. The organization doesn't need to worry about financial issues for the next few years. Pausing for a moment, Yahiko continued with a serious face. However, there are some details in the mission report that need clarification. During the week spent near the black market, Byakuya, where did you go? You didn't go and provoke other organizations or ninja villages again, did you? Given Byakuya's previous attack on the Hidden Grass village, Yahiko felt anxious whenever he didn't hear from Byakuya, fearing that if Byakuya continued like this, it would only be a matter of time before everything unraveled. After all, if Byakuya's role as the main financial supporter of Akatsuki were to be revealed, it could put the entire organization in jeopardy. Therefore, Yahiko wasn't concerned about Byakuya's ability to solve problems, but rather was afraid that Byakuya's strength and abilities might pose a risk to Akatsuki. I didn't provoke any other ninja villages. Instead, this time is the other way around. Conan-senpai and I were attacked by Hidden Leaf Village as Anbu. Byakuya shook his head, wearing an innocent expression. Yahiko found it hard to believe that Byakuya would be attacked. With Byakuya's mindset and strength, not attacking others would already be considered good. These words were surely nonsense. At that moment, Conan, who had been silent for a while, stepped forward to clear things up. Yahiko, what Byakuya said is true. We were indeed attacked by Hidden Leaf Village's Anbu. You really were attacked by Hidden Leaf Village's Anbu? Yahiko frowned. Byakuya might be lying to him, but Conan wouldn't. Seeing this scene, Conan nodded and recounted their experiences along the way. After hearing Conan's description, Yahiko glanced at the heavy rain outside the window and then at the distant dark clouds. He sighed lightly and took a deep breath. I'll find a way to negotiate with Hidden Leaf Village and handle this properly. Involving Hidden Leaf Village, Yahiko didn't know what else to say. As the Akatsuki flourished, Yahiko, reminded by Byakuya, knew that many individuals and other organizations would target the Akatsuki. But he didn't expect the first to target and take action against them would be Hidden Leaf Village, not the Hidden Rain Village. What's even more unexpected was that Hidden Leaf Village acted not because the Akatsuki posed a threat to Hidden Leaf Village but because they were disciples of Jiraiya, their sensei. I trust you, Leader Yahiko. After leaving a nonchalant response, Byakuya left the Akatsuki head office. At this moment, he didn't feel suitable for further conversation. He left the space for Conan and Yahiko to continue their discussion, knowing that they needed to figure things out. After all, Hiruzen and Saratobi attacking the Akatsuki had nothing to do with Jiraiya or Yahiko. He simply targeted them to stir up trouble in the Land of Rain. However, this didn't stop him from deceiving Yahiko and Conan. The trio were still too naive and needed some training. Chapter 48, My Busy Life. Seeing Byakuya's desolate figure fade away into the distance, Yahiko and Conan felt a deep sense of depression settle over them. In their minds, this attack was orchestrated by someone within Hidden Leaf Village who was dissatisfied with Jiraiya and chose to vent their anger on the Akatsuki organization instead. Now, because of this vendetta, both the Akatsuki and Byakuya were entangled in the repercussions. Although Byakuya possessed immense strength and the previous attack seemed insignificant in terms of physical damage, they were deeply concerned that it might have wounded his fragile and sensitive heart. Despite his usual demeanor of wisdom and intelligence, Byakuya was somewhat neurotic. His sense of insecurity was profound, and he harbored an intense need for the approval of others. When encountering someone with a similarly troubled background, he would exhibit a near-pathological tendency to care for them. To Yahiko, Byakuya was not only a mentor and guide but also a child who had yet to mature fully. When he exchanged a glance with Conan, it was clear that she had guessed what he was thinking. She shared his view of Byakuya, expressing her own struggles in trying to fully understand his complex inner thoughts. This shared understanding of Byakuya's nature only deepened their worry. They knew that beneath his strong exterior lay an easily bruised heart, and they feared the emotional impact this attack might have on him. After listening to this, Yahiko sighed softly. Conan, you still don't know Byakuya's background, do you? Conan was slightly taken aback and replied, somewhat puzzled. Isn't he an orphan like us? Yahiko shook his head and explained. It's true that Byakuya is an orphan, but he hails from the land of whirlpools. Like Nagato, he is a descendant of the Uzumaki clan and wandered for an even longer time. The Uzumaki descendants? But Nagato and Akon have red hair, don't they? Conan asked, recalling what she knew about the Uzumaki clan through Nagato. Nagato confirmed Byakuya's identity as a descendant of Uzumaki. As for why his hair is black instead of red, Yahiko said, intertwining his fingers and resting his chin on them, the hair of Uzumaki descendants is usually red. Still, there are exceptions when other bloodlines within the individual are more dominant than the Uzumaki bloodline, which explains his black hair. What kind of bloodline could overshadow the Uzumaki bloodline? Who are his parents? Conan asked, her surprise evident. However, hearing Yahiko's explanation, she began to understand why Byakuya was so powerful at such a young age. It was due to his unique bloodline. Yahiko shook his head, his eyes reflecting confusion. I don't know who Byakuya's parents are, and it seems he doesn't know either. However, his fragile and sensitive personality might be related to his experiences and bloodline. We should take good care of him in the future. He is our family, too. Okay. Conan agreed. She had no objections to taking care of Byakuya. The Akatsuki organization was built on mutual support, and she often received care from Byakuya as well. At this point, Conan seemed to remember something and asked. Yahiko, are you really planning to contact Jiraiya-sensei? We haven't been in touch with him for years, and we've even lost the communication toad. Yahiko nodded and smiled. Even if the toad is lost, we can still find Jiraiya-sensei. I wonder if, after all these years, Jiraiya-sensei is still the same, wandering aimlessly. Recalling past fond memories, Conan also showed a gentle smile. While Yahiko and Conan were immersed in speculation, Byakuya returned to his room. The room remained arranged as it was before his mission, but subtle signs indicated that his notes had been tampered with. They were now excessively neatly arranged. Despite his habit of keeping his desk organized, he didn't possess a compulsion for perfect order. Thus, It was evident that someone had rummaged through his belongings during his absence, most likely one of the obsessive-compulsive White Zetsu clones. Though these notes were intended to craft his persona, the invasion of his privacy didn't sit well with Byakuya. He likened it to the necessity of consent in reality shows, emphasizing the need for compensation for such intrusion. In a sarcastic tone, he wondered about Madara joining the Akatsuki and offering him gold coins or even a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan, implying the absurdity of freeloaders hindering his ability to create entertaining performances. After venting his frustrations, Byakuya meticulously documented the mission details in his notebook. In his notes, he expressed his dissatisfaction with the mission and took the opportunity to voice his grievances regarding Akatsuki's leadership. Once he finished jotting down his thoughts, Byakuya reclined on the sofa, allowing his body to relax as he contemplated his following tasks. For someone with multiple identities like him, mission served as a form of respite. Life at the base proved more draining. On the surface, Byakuya appeared as a mid-level leader in the Akatsuki, second only to Yahiko's trio. Apart from his daily training, he oversaw the special training of Akane, Nagato, and others. Yahiko occasionally called him for small meetings involving 2 or 3 people. In secret, he stayed in contact with subordinates like Shigure to monitor movements in Hidden Rain Village, ensuring the village wouldn't launch a sudden attack on the Akatsuki. He had also become a subordinate of Denzo, a pawn in Denzo's schemes in the Land of Rain. Denzo could assign him a task to stir up trouble in the Land of Rain at any moment. Additionally, he had to maintain his persona in front of Madara Uchiha and White Zetsu. With so many tasks, his life was planned and very fulfilling. Despite the challenges, as long as the Akatsuki could develop and provide him with steady resources, these hardships were worth it. In his previous life, he was just a hardworking employee. In the shinobi world and the Akatsuki, he was one of the founding elders and had already become a candidate for the leader. After resting with his eyes closed for a while, Byakuya suddenly got up from the sofa, frowning. He gently pushed open the door and walked straight towards the forest outside the Akatsuki base. Soon, he arrived at a secluded spot and performed the summoning technique. With a poof sound followed by a puff of white smoke, a bird appeared on Byakuya's shoulder with a scroll tied to its leg. Byakuya picked up the scroll, dismissing the summoning contract with a resigned expression. This bird wasn't just any summoning beast, it was the dedicated courier hawk he used to communicate with Denzo. The main issue was that he had returned to the Akatsuki base less than half a day ago, and Denzo had already contacted him, which was a bit too frequent, as if he were treating him like a subordinate. Byakuya frowned, very displeased with Denzo's behavior. However, upon opening the scroll and seeing the A-rank ninjutsu in the attached check, his frown eased considerably, thinking that Denzo did show concern for his subordinates. As long as Denzo continued to provide resources, their cooperative relationship might last for a long time. After some critical thinking, Byakuya slowly opened the communication scroll and began to read it carefully. Chapter 49, Preparation of a New Department. The current strength of the Akatsuki organization is too weak. You must develop it immediately in order to facilitate our sincere cooperation. The contents of the letter were simple, but after reading it, Byakuya's eye twitched. Man, he wanted to punch that face. The nerve of that fossil, Denzo. Did the root leader think Byakuya was his errand boy? Develop the Akatsuki? The letter demanded like an order, not a request. Did Byakuya want the Akatsuki to grow? Absolutely. Did he currently possess the magic wand to make that happen? Absolutely not. Why couldn't Denzo just waltz in and strong-arm the 5 great nations himself? Byakuya usually ignored such ridiculous demands from clients. But hey, Denzo still had some use. With a sigh, Byakuya grabbed a brush and started crafting his reply. First, a healthy dose of passive-aggressive annoyance. Then, the real issue is Akatsuki's growth deficit. The Akatsuki was a newly emerging group that lacked manpower, funds, and ninja techniques. Byakuya had suggested reforms in these aspects several times during organizational meetings, but they were consistently rejected by the senior executives led by Yahiko. So, yeah, any sincere cooperation with the Hokage's office was impossible. For now. Finishing the letter, Byakuya reread it, savoring the subtle jabs. Yep, that should get a rise out of Denzo. He sealed it with wax, a smug smile playing on his lips, and summoned a messenger hawk. As the hawk soared away, shrinking into a speck against the vast sky, Byakuya's smile widened. This letter was a masterpiece, perfectly tailored to inflate Denzo's ego while subtly reminding him who was really in charge. Byakuya wasn't blasting back with his chakra like he usually did. Instead, he found Akane shivering a few hundred meters down the path, looking like a drowned kitten. Her glasses were fogged and her clothes plastered to her skin, rain soaking them through. Akane? What are you doing out here? Didn't I tell you to stay inside when it rains? Byakuya asked, exasperation lacing his voice. Okan fumbled with her glasses, wiping away the clinging water droplets. Lord Byakuya, when I heard you were back, I just had to see you. But you weren't home, so well, I followed your chakra signature all the way here. A hint of pride snuck into her tone. I wanted to tell you I mastered all the sealing techniques you taught me. Byakuya stared at her, speechless for a moment. Couldn't this girl have picked a better time? Here he was, in the middle of some top-secret shinobi business, and Okan decides to play detective. What if she'd blown his cover? This secluded spot was over 10 kilometers from the Akatsuki base. Thankfully, Byakuya himself had mastered the Kagura's mind's eye technique. Otherwise, Okan's freakishly good sensory perception would have picked up on him. He'd have been forced to confess everything, and Yahiko would definitely flip his lid about Byakuya conspiring with Denzo. Still, Byakuya tried his best not to sound like a drill sergeant in front of the enthusiastic young Kunoichi. Look, Okan. It's great that you're so eager to improve. But the next time you decide to embark on a solo mission, maybe consider packing some weights and wearing clothes that don't turn to mush when they get wet. Okan blinked, completely bewildered. Weight training? Even on rainy days? This Byakuya character was starting to freak her out a bit. Seriously, what was with the constant training? It was like he was obsessed, and why was he always hiding away from the base to do it? A seed of suspicion sprouted in Okan's mind. Was Byakuya up to something shady? Why the secrecy? Could it be that he was training in secret? Byakuya could practically hear Okan's gears turning. He chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. Thinking about joining the secret training club, are you? You know, I've always thought you had the makings of a powerhouse taijutsu user. Okan's head whipped back and forth like a frantic metronome. Nope. No way. Absolutely not. She wasn't built for hand-to-hand combat. Her happy place was buried in research scrolls, dissecting medical ninjutsu and unraveling the complexities of sealing techniques. The outside world was a terrifying place. Everyone seemed to have their eyes on the Uzumaki bloodline, and that wasn't exactly a comforting thought. Byakuya, ever the master of deflection, smoothly steered the conversation away from his mysterious training sessions. Instead, he focused on Okan's progress. He was itching to know when she'd be ready to level up, Jonin, maybe even Elite Jonin, or dare he dream, Kage level? Unfortunately, Okan's strength gains weren't exactly meteoric. While she was a genius in the research department, her chosen fields of medical ninjutsu and sealing techniques didn't exactly translate to raw physical power. It was a tough break for research-focused ninjas like Okan. Climbing the ranks to Jonin or even Kage level was a steeper path compared to their combat-oriented brethren. But hey, the long game was what mattered, right? Okan's research would be instrumental in the Akatsuki's growth. With the organization solidifying its foundation, it was time to start building specialized teams, medical units, sealing squads, the whole shebang. A proper department. Throwing everyone into the mix without dedicated roles wouldn't cut it. However, to truly establish exclusive departments, the Akatsuki still lacked manpower. With only dozens of ninjas in the Akatsuki at the moment, at least hundreds were needed to differentiate into various departments. This meant that it was time for the Akatsuki to start recruiting. Byakuya wasted no time after returning to the Akatsuki's base. He marched straight to Yahiko's office, surprising him with a second visit in one day. Byakuya wasn't known for his frequent visits to the leader's office. Byakuya, do you need something? Yahiko asked, raising an eyebrow. Byakuya gave a curt nod, getting straight to the point. The money situation is settled. But with threats from both the Hidden Rain Village and Hidden Leaf Village's Anbu on our plate, we need more muscle. And it's high time the Akatsuki had dedicated departments for things like medical care and security. Yahiko leaned back in his chair, considering this. Recruiting more people? I was actually thinking the same thing. He agreed instinctively, then a furrow appeared in his brow. Wait, what's going on with the Hidden Rain Village? Hidden Leaf Village's ninja attacked us. What does this have to do with Lord Hanzo? Byakuya's face remained impassive. Naturally, the Akatsuki's development will arouse Hanzo's suspicions. You can think of Hanzo as not posing a threat to us. However, to deal with the attacks from Hidden Leaf Village ninja, we need to recruit more manpower. Yahiko couldn't deny the logic. Both Byakuya and Conan had been attacked by ninja recently. Plus, their recent expansion meant they were stretched thin. Setting up medical and security departments was also long overdue. After their last chat with Byakuya, Yahiko had researched the history of the major shinobi villages. He discovered they were all founded on ideals, similar to the Akatsuki's current goals. But as they grew, they also established various departments to function effectively. What truly bothered Yahiko was the hypocrisy. These villages preached unity and friendship internally, yet acted differently on the world stage. It made him worry about the Akatsuki's future. Would they become just another power-hungry village like the five great nations? It was probably too early to worry about that. The Akatsuki was still small, with limited influence in the Land of Rain. Shaking off his anxieties, Yahiko met Byakuya's gaze. I'll get started on setting up the new departments in a few days. But I have one favor to ask. What is it? Byakuya asked curiously. Yahiko smiled. When you bring back new recruits this time, I want you to help me evaluate them. Don't try to shirk your duties. Byakuya considered this for a moment, then gave a small nod of agreement. Chapter 50, Denzo's plan somewhere within the borders of the Land of Rain. Denzo sat calmly on a tatami mat, staring at the reply letter lying on the table. Byakuya was the first pawn he had placed in the Akatsuki organization, so he anticipated the letter's contents. The information might bring quite a surprise. After opening the letter, Denzo carefully read its contents. In the first part of the letter, Byakuya did not follow his instructions to immediately develop the Akatsuki organization. Instead, he countered Denzo's orders, telling him not to meddle in other people's affairs. Though Denzo was displeased, it was still within an acceptable range. Byakuya was not a ninja he had trained from a young age and now held a relatively high position in the Akatsuki. It was normal for him to be dissatisfied with Denzo's interference. Young people always learn to restrain their sharpness and respect their elders after certain experiences. Continuing to read, Denzo saw that Byakuya mentioned he was already working hard to develop the Akatsuki. However, due to a lack of manpower, money, and ninjutsu, the plan had been delayed. Denzo was accustomed to this kind of rhetoric. It was a way to express dissatisfaction with the amount of support provided, seeking more benefits from him. Ninjas who rose from small villages often treated A-rank ninjutsu as treasures and were willing to risk their lives for a few million ryo. They were easy to handle. However, support had to be given carefully, not too little to cause resentment and not too much to encourage independence. In training spies, Denzo prided himself on his considerable expertise. Continuing to read, Denzo's expression became exceedingly complex with mixed feelings when he saw that Byakuya's suggestions at the Akatsuki meeting were unanimously rejected by the leadership, led by Yahiko. He was pleased that his assessment of Byakuya was accurate. Byakuya was indeed the one doing the dirty work within the Akatsuki and had the ambition to climb higher. However, due to various reasons, his proposals were dismissed by the self-righteous ninjas, preventing him from fully showcasing his abilities. The sadness stemmed from seeing himself in a similar situation, but in a worse state. Whenever Denzo proposed something, it was always met with opposition from Hiruzen Sarutobi. Koharu Utatane and Hamura Midakata would also side with Sarutobi, jointly rejecting his proposals. Unlike Byakuya, Denzo was just one step away from becoming the Hokage. During the incident involving the rear guard, if he hadn't hesitated and had suggested it before Hiruzen Sarutobi, he might have become the third Hokage. Then, he wouldn't have to protect the light from within the darkness. If given the choice, who would want to remain in the darkness as a root instead of becoming the Hokage in the sunlight? Seeing Denzo lost in thought, Ryoma Barame felt a bit puzzled. Wasn't it just a letter from Byakuya? Why did Denzo-sama look so gloomy? Had Byakuya offended Denzo-sama? With this in mind, Aburame Ryoma cautiously asked. Denzo-sama, did Byakuya refuse your order? Denzo shook his head and glared at his pawn. You do not have permission to ask questions. Hearing this, Ryoma obediently shut his mouth. Not asking unnecessary questions was one of the rules in the root handbook. As Denzo's right-hand man, he usually didn't need to follow this rule. But since Denzo had spoken directly, even he couldn't inquire further about this secret. However, this made him even more curious about the letter's contents. At that moment, Denzo reached the end of the letter, where Byakuya inquired if there were any methods for seizing power and promised to strengthen cooperation with Hidden Leaf Village after becoming the leader of the Akatsuki. Reading this, Denzo fell silent again. Byakuya seeking his help was a good thing, it allowed for better control and could turn Byakuya into a complete pawn. However, as the leader of the root, Denzo had carried out many covert missions, assassinated officials under the daimyo, and even plotted against the third Raikage. But when it came to seizing power, he had little experience. If he had the experience, he would have already dethroned Hiruzen Sarutobi. The position of Hokage should belong to him, while Hiruzen Sarutobi was more suited to be the leader of the root, living underground. At this moment, Denzo couldn't help but imagine himself standing atop the Hokage residence, wearing the Hokage hat, waving to the crowd as they roared in response, respectfully calling him Hokage-sama while Hiruzen was hiding in a corner of the crowd, hiding his face with embarrassment. After the fantasy ended, Denzo looked at Ryoma beside him, pushed the letter towards him. Ryoma, Byakuya needs support. Do you have any good ideas? Ryoma quickly glanced at the contents of the letter, his face gradually turning serious. The support Byakuya needed was simple, but he neither knew nor wanted to answer Denzo. The relationship between Byakuya and the Akatsuki leadership mirrored that between Denzo and the other Hidden Leaf village higher-ups. Denzo asking him how to assist Byakuya was essentially asking how to stage a coup within Hidden Leaf village. With a straight face, Ryuma scratched his head. Denzo-sama, why don't we help Byakuya kill the Akatsuki leader and its top executives? Without the other leaders, Byakuya would naturally become the head of the Akatsuki. Killing them is indeed an option, but it's too difficult and could foster others' resentment towards Byakuya. Denzo frowned, dissatisfied with this suggestion. If all the other leaders died, the sole surviving leader would become the prime suspect. Although others might know the truth but would not speak out, this would inevitably weaken the organization's strength. If an external invasion occurred, the newly acquired leader position wouldn't last long. After his suggestion was rejected, Ryuma breathed a sigh of relief and then proposed. How about we stage a scenario where Byakuya rescues the Akatsuki during a crisis? This way, Byakuya would become a hero in the Akatsuki and naturally ascend to leadership. Not bad. This plan is much more reliable than the previous one. Hearing this suggestion, Denzo's expression softened considerably. If Byakuya could become a hero in the organization, Denzo's own chances of becoming Hokage in the future would indeed increase significantly. But there are no significant battles in the village right now. Even if the village were in crisis, it's highly likely that Minato or Hiruzen would be the ones to save it. He wouldn't have any chance at all. This plan still isn't very reliable. Thinking this, Denzo looked at Aburame Ryuma before rubbing his chin. Do you have any other plans? I don't think these are good enough. Chapter 51, Attention from Black Zetsu. Ryuma Aburame had always clung to the adage, in life or death situations, sheer desperation unlocks potential, allowing us to achieve feats far beyond our perceived limits. It used to be an unshakable truth for him, but now, facing the impossible task of staging a coup, he had his doubts. He racked his brain, desperately searching for a solution. Finally, with a heavy sigh, he took a gamble, approaching Lord Denzo with a hesitant. Lord Denzo, I'm afraid I've reached a dead end. I can't think of any other option. To Ryuma's surprise, Denzo didn't unleash his usual tirade. Instead, a cold scoff escaped his lips, and the matter was simply dismissed. After all, if Ryuma truly had a stockpile of coup plans, wouldn't Denzo be suspicious of his loyalty? Why else would the Aburame constantly delve into such subversive tactics? However, Ryuma's two proposed strategies weren't entirely without merit. Just because there wasn't an immediate opportunity to implement them didn't mean they were useless. With Orochimaru ascending to 4th Hokage position in the future, a window of possibilities could open. The sight of Denzo lost in contemplation sent shivers down Ryuma's spine. Perhaps Denzo truly harbored his own coup ambitions. Given their intricate political dance with the Hokage, Denzo might face a slap on the wrist, imprisonment at worst. But for a lowly jonin from a minor clan like himself? The consequences could be dire. Denzo, seasoned in the treacherous politics of Hidden Leaf Village, likely saw through Ryuma's thinly veiled fear, choosing to keep it to himself. As long as Ryuma remained discreet, his position as advisor remained secure. Clearing his throat, Denzo looked at Ryuma. Ryuma, your plans hold promise. I intend to forward them to Byakuya. If he can truly manipulate the Akatsuki and Hidden Rain Village into warring against one another, it would be a significant contribution. I was simply fulfilling my duty. Ryuma replied, a faint smile plastered on his face. However, a deeper, gnawing anxiety festered within him. Was delegating his strategies to Byakuya of the Akatsuki merely a prelude to a staged coup rehearsal? Ryuma's suspicion mirrored Denzo's far grander scheme. By entrusting these plans to Byakuya, regardless of success or failure, both Akatsuki and the Land of Rain would be destabilized. A successful Byakuya would not only be an ally but also offer invaluable insights into the mechanics of a coup. Victory or defeat wasn't the game. Denzo craved a multitude of victories, each one a stepping stone on his path to power. Suppressing a surge of excitement, Denzo reached for his writing instrument, no longer the cold, emotionless leader. His pen scratched across the parchment, fueled by a newfound fervor. This wasn't just a message, it was a passionate treatise, brimming with his strategic experience and ambitions. Byakuya received the letter 2 days later. 2 days might not seem long or short, but for Byakuya, Denzo's letters were coming too frequently, even more often than Yahiko's. After feeding his dried meat to the ninja hawk, Byakuya opened Denzo's letter. The opening words were still condescending, with Denzo showing no awareness that their positions were equal. However, considering the small gift included, Byakuya magnanimously forgave Denzo. Next, Denzo, in the tone of an experienced elder, advised Byakuya on how to stage a coup and seize power. He thoughtfully included 2 coup plans along with detailed implementation steps. Looking at the extensive text and the considerate greetings, Byakuya couldn't help but picture Denzo writing the letter, his mouth twitching slightly. The good news was that the persona he had established in Denzo's eyes was successful. The bad news was that it was too successful. He just wanted to trick some coup subsidies out of Denzo and confuse him a bit, but Denzo really believed he wanted to stage a coup and thoughtfully prepared two plans. For the first plan, Byakuya had only one comment: it was too idiotic. Eliminating all Akatsuki leadership to elevate the remaining members? Absurd. Byakuya could simply establish his own organization and be the leader from the get-go. The second plan, however, had some merit. Colluding with external enemies and then emerging as a hero to save the world was a normal process for seizing power. Nothing strange about it. But did such a plan really need advice? Wasn't this common practice? After reading the letter, Byakuya's doubts about Denzo's expertise in coups began to fester. Was this truly the leader of Hidden Leaf Village's route, the organization shrouded in secrecy and tasked with the village's dirty work? How utterly incompetent. At this point, Byakuya recalled Denzo's attempt to assassinate the third Hokage. In the anime, Denzo had indeed dispatched Kakashi and Yamato for the job, only to have Kakashi expose the plan, gifting the third with a powerful wood-style user. Even Denzo's appointment as interim Hokage was dubious. Denzo's appointment as interim Hokage was even more straightforward. The entire village was wiped out, yet he still hid in the root organization's base. After Naruto defeated the Six Paths of Pain, he emerged again to run for Hokage. It could only be said that Denzo's competence was truly lacking. If the Hokage had not been the third Hokage, Denzo might have died many times already. Despite his inner criticisms, Byakuya, adhering to the principle that the client is always right, earnestly wrote a reply. In the letter, he respectfully addressed Denzo as a senior and asked for guidance in a student-like tone. These little tricks were second nature to him, and he could write them without any burden. After sealing the letter with quality wax, Byakuya summoned the ninja hawk to send it to Denzo. Having completed this, Byakuya looked towards the nearby forest, then leapt from the tree trunk and headed towards the Akatsuki base. Today, Akon wasn't following him, but White Zetsu had secretly tailed him. Why was Madara Uchiha constantly keeping an eye on the Akatsuki? Was the man simply senile and bored? Or old dudes in this world in general have a tendency to spy on kids? He remembered third Hokage also used to do this. Regardless, having two elderly figures scrutinize his every move was becoming tiresome. The thought even startled Byakuya, forcing him to shake his head and refocus. He had a recruitment process to manage. Previously, he'd always been the one on the interviewee's side of the table. Now, the tables were turned, and he, the interviewer, held the power to shape the future of the Akatsuki. Byakuya's departure wasn't unnoticed. As he vanished into the tree line, a grotesque shape emerged from the damp earth. It was a monstrous pitcher plant, its bulbous form pulsating with an unnatural life. The plant swiveled its grotesquely oversized mouth in the direction Byakuya had taken, its single eye tracking the departing ninja hawk. After a moment of silent contemplation, the plant activated its unsettling floating technique and sank back into the soil, burrowing purposefully towards the land of grass. This unsettling creature was none other than Black Zetsu, a being created by Madara Uchiha but harboring a far more sinister truth. He was the offspring of the legendary Kaguya Otsutsuki. After being created by Madara, he had been ordered to monitor the Akatsuki's activities. Among the Akatsuki members, Black Zetsu was most concerned about Nagato, who bore the Rinnegan. The Rinnegan was crucial for reviving his mother, and no mistakes could be allowed. Next in Black Zetsu's web of intrigue were Konan, Yahiko, and the enigmatic Byakuya. Konan and Yahiko, with their focus on explosive tag creation and administrative tasks, held minimal interest for Black Zetsu. Byakuya, however, was a different story. In addition to being a member of the Akatsuki, he secretly maintained contact with Hidden Leaf Village ninjas. If there was any breakthrough point within the Akatsuki, Black Zetsu believed it would be Byakuya. Chapter 52, Obito's dream. The speed of the floating technique was very fast. It only took a few hours for Black Zetsu to reach the underground of the land of grass. Ignoring the greetings from the surrounding White Zetsu, he successfully met Madara Uchiha and Obito. Seeing the scene of Madara Uchiha instructing Obito, Black Zetsu felt exasperated. Since a month ago, when he was injected into White Zetsu as Madara's will, Madara seemed to have truly abandoned his dark side, handing over the task of monitoring Nagato to him. He began to enjoy a peaceful life with Obito. Every day, except for sleeping and observing the ninja world, he spent the rest of the time teaching Obito ninjutsu. Although Madara verbally disdained Obito, he did not hold anything back, genuinely training Obito as his successor, even restoring Obito's lost Sharingan. If Madara was just using Obito, that would be fine, but if he truly became attached to the young kid, it would be a significant loss. Obito, continue your training. I have other matters to attend to. At this moment, Madara also noticed Black Zetsu nearby. After briefly instructing Obito, he approached Black Zetsu. Frowning at the pitch-black Black Zetsu, Madara asked, "Black Zetsu, why are you here? Is there any change with the Akatsuki?" Black Zetsu shook his head. "There are no problems with Nagato and the Akatsuki, but there is new movement from the one you previously asked me to monitor, Byakuya." Mentioning Byakuya, Madara showed more interest and signaled for Black Zetsu to continue. Recently, Byakuya has been secretly contacting Hidden Leaf Village ninjas, specifically members of Hidden Leaf Village's Anbu. Over the past few days, he has been continuously exchanging information with them, as if planning something significant. Hearing this, Madara's expression remained largely unchanged. Byakuya contacting Hidden Leaf Village's Anbu had nothing to do with the Eye of the Moon plan. As long as there were no issues with Nagato, the fate of the Akatsuki organization was irrelevant to him. The urgent task was to quickly train Obito so that he could become the executor of the Eye of the Moon plan. If it's just these matters, you can handle them yourself. There's no need to come and inform me unless someone is targeting Nagato's Rinnegan. After saying this, Madara walked towards Obito, preparing to continue instructing him. Black Zetsu sighed inwardly. He was very dissatisfied with Madara's attitude and took a step forward. "Lord Madara, isn't your relationship with Obito a bit too close recently? Please don't forget about our Eye of the Moon plan." Hearing this, Madara's expression instantly changed. He glared Black Zetsu before scoffing off. "I have never forgotten the Eye of the Moon plan. You are my will, you should understand me very well." Black Zetsu's heart skipped a beat, but he still mimicked Madara's tone. "Lord Madara, I am merely reminding you. From your recent behavior, it seems like you are straying from the Eye of the Moon plan. I am worried you might hesitate to act against Obito when the time comes." Madara glanced at Black Zetsu, then snorted coldly. "Though you are my will, you have been influenced by White Zetsu and forgotten the essence of the Uchiha clan. Someone I despise from the Senju clan once said this: the Uchiha are a clan of love. Extreme love can breed extreme hatred, and such intense emotional fluctuations can give birth to the Mangekyo Sharingan. The more warmth I let Obito feel now, the more brilliant his Mangekyo Sharingan will become." Black Zetsu was speechless. Of course, he understood the Uchiha. The ancestor of the Uchiha clan, Indra, had made enemies with the Sage of Six Paths after he manipulated the first Red Eyes idiot. Over the past 1,000 years, he had guided countless reincarnations of Indra and knew the Uchiha better than anyone. However, this time, Madara had successfully awakened the Rinnegan and was the final reincarnation that held the hope of resurrecting his mother. It was only natural that his emotions would fluctuate under such circumstances. Most importantly, he wasn't truly Madara's will and couldn't fully comprehend Madara's thoughts. Nonetheless, as long as Madara carried out the Eye of the Moon plan, it was fine. If not, he wouldn't mind using some small tricks to cultivate a new pawn. After all, even without Madara, as long as the Rinnegan and the Jido statue were present, his mother could still be freed from her seal. With this in mind, Black Zetsu watched Madara and Obito before gradually retreating into the shadows. After Black Zetsu disappeared, Madara returned to Obito's side, his face stern as he resumed his guidance. Obito was curious about what Madara and Black Zetsu had discussed, but facing the stern Madara Uchiha, he could only continue practicing ninjutsu and accept Madara's guidance. Although this old man, Madara Uchiha, was strict, he had some skill in one-on-one teaching. During these few months underground, Obito had learned a lot of ninjutsu and his body gradually adapted to White Zetsu cells, allowing him to move and run freely. More importantly, he felt stronger than before, not inferior to even the top jonin of his clan. With such strength, once he returned to the village, he would surely surpass Kakashi and become a jonin of Hidden Leaf Village. By then, Obito would also score some points with Rin, and who knows, maybe Obito could level up from friend to very very close friend, possibly close to lover. Seeing Obito smile like an idiot, a smile gradually formed on Madara's lips. Since faking his death with Izanagi and escaping, he hadn't had contact with ninjas for decades, and his aging body had made his mindset gradually decline. However, in teaching Obito, he felt much younger. It was as if he had returned to when he was in his teens, when his younger brother hadn't been killed by the Senju clan. Besides the genius Suzuna, there were many youngsters with inferior talents. Their talents weren't particularly strong, but they deeply admired their mentor, Madara. Obito was the same. Although his talents in ninjutsu, taijutsu, and ganjutsu were not outstanding, he sometimes resembled his younger brother, making Madara feel the warmth from the younger generation. However, he was also aware that awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan was just a necessary step. At this moment, after completing his training, Obito sat on the ground gasping for breath and looked at Madara. Grandpa Madara, when can I finally leave? Hearing this, Madara woke up from his reverie, frowned and glared at Obito. With your current strength, you can leave this place even without my help. However, now that the war outside has ended and your teammates have returned to Hidden Leaf Village, if you truly wish to leave here, I won't stop you. But our connection will end here. Without my guidance, do you think you still have hope of becoming Hokage? Obito looked at Madara, kinda surprised. Grandpa Madara, didn't you want me to carry out the Eye of the Moon plan and make everyone dream together? That's the infinite Tsukami. Madara muttered to himself, but he continued to deceive, that's my dream. However, before I achieve my dream, it doesn't mean other people can't achieve theirs, like helping someone become Hokage. Really? Obito's eyes lit up at the mention of Hokage. Of course. Madara Uchiha nodded and continued to coax, although I'm not interested in that position, I don't mind helping someone else get there. Upon hearing this, Obito seemed to be injected with chicken blood, becoming even more determined. Chapter 53, Akatsuki Infiltration. After a bout of persuasion, Madara leaned against the Jido statue to rest. For a moment, he genuinely considered grooming Obito to become the Hokage. However, based on his years of observing Hidden Leaf Village, he knew that even with his meticulous training, the chances of Obito becoming Hokage were slim. Beyond the Uchiha clan being marginalized by the Senju lineage, the overwhelming strength of the Senju clan was also a factor. Nevertheless, after Tobirama became Hokage, Madara began to disdain the position. Tobirama's reforms twisted both Hidden Leaf Village and the Will of Fire beyond recognition. At first, the dream he and Hashirama shared was simple, a haven for their families, safe from the horrors of war. But the Will of Fire morphed into something unrecognizable. What began as a vow to protect comrades had warped into a demand for self-sacrifice for the village. This wasn't the future they envisioned. A mere 30 or 40 years, and everything had been corrupted. And those who remained in Hidden Leaf Village, the younger generation, were completely unaware of this. Foolishly aspiring to become Hokage was akin to seeking their own death. No, it was better for Obito to join him. Together, they'd break free from this rotting husk of Hidden Leaf Village and enact the Eye of the Moon plan. With this thought, Madara sighed lightly, his thoughts drifting towards Obito in the distance. After 2 months of interaction, his relationship with Obito had improved significantly. If he were to betray Obito now, it might push Obito to evolve his Sharingan to the 3 Tomoe state. However, just a 3 Tomoe Sharingan would not suffice for the plan. It seemed he would have to start with Kakashi and Rin Nohara. But what kind of plan could make Obito thoroughly despise this world and willingly execute the Eye of the Moon plan? Lost in thought, Madara plotted his next move. A few days later, in the early morning. The crisp morning air did little to wake Byakuya as he stumbled into the interview room, eyes heavy with sleep. Yahiko, perched in the head seat, eyed him with a wry smile. Still tired? Why not catch some shut-eye on the couch? You'll need your energy for the interviews later. Byakuya mumbled a sleepy refusal. I can hold on for a bit longer. I'll sleep soundly during the interview, and besides, you're the interviewer. I'll just listen in. Hearing this, Yahiko felt a bit helpless but had no choice. Byakuya's involvement in these interviews was a recent development. In the past, internal meetings were either tedious nitpicking sessions for Byakuya or opportunities for him to catch some serious ZZs. It was as if the passionate discussions meant nothing to him. Seemingly guessing Yahiko's thoughts, Byakuya perked up and grinned. Just kidding, I'm actually looking forward to meeting the fresh faces. Hopefully, we'll find some interesting additions this time around. Yahiko couldn't help but be skeptical. Interesting ninjas rarely translated to reliable ones. But Byakuya's participation was a win in itself. If anything happened to Yahiko, Byakuya's presence ensured the Akatsuki wouldn't crumble. After all, compared to Byakuya, the other members were even less reliable and couldn't take on such a responsibility. Half an hour later, Kyujuke, the Jonin with lava style, led over a dozen newcomers into the room. Their eyes darted around the room, anxiety clinging to them like a second skin. Yahiko observed these newcomers, evaluating their behavior silently. Well, from the moment they entered, the interview had already begun. A few months ago, the Akatsuki didn't have an interview process. Back then, the organization was so poor that anyone willing to join could do so without much scrutiny. But as the number of members increased, the Akatsuki introduced a selection process. This was to test if the new members truly wanted to join the Akatsuki. After all, not all ninjas joined for the organization's ideals, many were drawn by the benefits of exchanging jutsu and resources. The presence of these individuals gradually diluted the purity of the Akatsuki. Initially, Yahiko was unwilling to believe this, but after several internal conflicts, He realized this was a growing pain the Akatsuki would inevitably experience. Yahiko had asked Byakuya about this issue. Byakuya offered two suggestions: kill, or implement a selection process to reduce such incidents. Naturally, Yahiko chose the latter. He disliked killing and had never taken a life. If they could discourage ninjas with weak resolve during this process, it would be ideal. The selection process was straightforward. Yahiko would first ask some basic questions while Nagato, his Rinnegan activated, probed for any telltale signs of deception. If they passed muster, the Akatsuki welcomed them with open arms. Byakuya had no interest in the questioning process and kept yawning in his spot. Aside from this question and answer, he had a better way to conduct the selection. By turning off the blocker for low-level ninjas, each new member who joined the Akatsuki would receive corresponding system rewards. By simply evaluating the type of rewards, Byakuya could roughly discern the true identities of new members, simple and efficient. Geinin Fujiwara joined the Akatsuki. You received a water-style, chakra fragment. Chunin Sasaki joined the Akatsuki. You received the ninja art, super beast imitating drawing. White Zetsu joined the Akatsuki. You received the Mayfly technique. Byakuya's joy was short-lived. Upon receiving the rewards of the super beast imitating drawing and the Mayfly technique, he opened his eyes and looked at the new members being interviewed. A water-style, chakra fragment was fine. It was a common reward typically dropped by low-level geinin. But the super beast imitating drawing was a secret technique of the root, never used by ninjas outside of Hidden Leaf Village. This meant that Denzo had placed other spies in the Akatsuki besides himself. This indicated a lack of trust in him. As for White Zetsu and the Mayfly technique, there was no need for further identification. Their very names revealed their origin, indicating Madara's overt surveillance. This was a blatant insult, a clear message of distrust in Byakuya. Who the hell they think they are? Despite his internal complaints, Byakuya didn't expose these spies immediately. Instead, he closed his eyes again, planning how to make use of them. Since they had joined the Akatsuki, regardless of their true identities, they would have to contribute to the organization. Soon, the interviews for the new members concluded. Yahiko and Nagato seemed unaware of these spies, which made Byakuya question the Rinnegan's capabilities. The Rinnegan should be able to sense good and evil, even extracting souls for interrogation. But quickly, Byakuya realized it wasn't Rinnegan's fault but rather that Nagato hadn't yet mastered it fully, unable to utilize its full power. After all, Nagato wasn't the true owner of the Rinnegan. Many of its secrets were known only to Madara. No, even Madara might not know everything about Rinnegan. After all, he had awakened the Rinnegan much later in his life and right after some time, he implanted them in Nagato. Anyway, after the new members were led by an Akatsuki Jonin to retrieve their uniforms from the warehouse, Byakuya approached Yahiko and Nagato. Yahiko, remembering the earlier joke, smiled at Byakuya. What are your thoughts on the new recruits? Any promising prospects? Byakuya looked at Yahiko and raised his brows. How about spies? Yahiko's expression immediately turned grim. You're saying there are spies among them? Nagato and I tested them, and they didn't oppose our ideology. Byakuya shook his head before responding calmly. Not opposing our ideology doesn't mean they aren't spies. To achieve their goals, they can pretend to be exactly what we need. Yahiko took a deep breath. Which ones are spies? I'll expel them from the Akatsuki immediately. Byakuya shook his head slightly. Expelling them is unnecessary. Even if we kick them out, new spies will infiltrate. It's better to make the most of them and let me train them. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Since Madara and Denzo were so generous to lend their fighters and gifting Byakuya some unique jutsu, he would definitely make good use of them. Chapter 54, Shining Bright. You're going to handle these spies? Yahiko raised a brow. Then, as if making a firm decision, Yahiko nodded and showed a thumbs up. Byakuya, try to make it quick for them. Don't torture them too much. Yahiko, you've actually developed a killing sense. Byakuya was surprised. He then realized Yahiko might be misunderstanding something before he quickly explained, I won't torture them. Then I'm relieved. Yahiko gave him a knowing look. Having sat in a leader's position for so long, he was no longer as kind as he once was. He knew Byakuya was cooking something but he let Byakuya cook. It couldn't be helped. If they let these spies go, it would pose a greater threat to the Akatsuki. Yahiko could already foresee what would happen next. Byakuya would supposedly fail to keep a close watch, allowing them to escape, and during the recapture, there would be accidents, resulting in a few corpses being brought back. Such a small probability event was almost certain with Byakuya. At this moment, Nagato also looked over, his eyes seemingly saying, please take care of it. Byakuya glanced at Yahiko and Nagato helplessly, too tired to explain further. In their minds, Their perception of him as ruthless was solidified. Though he had killed some rogue ninjas guilty of heinous crimes, he had never killed indiscriminately. He only executed those confirmed to have committed serious offenses. The ninja world is in chaos, and harsh measures are necessary to deter those with malicious intent. Besides, he never said he wanted to kill these newcomers. He just wanted to make good use of these spies, to help them realize their potential. Many of the organization's tough and tedious tasks needed people like them to handle. If Byakuya were to burden regular Akatsuki members with these jobs, they'd complain or even leave the organization. Spies on critical missions are different, they are more resilient. Even if they believe they are being treated unjustly, they have no choice but to comply and continue working. After all, ninjas capable of becoming spies already had strong endurance and stress management skills. Without wasting much time, and with Yahiko's permission, Byakuya headed towards the newcomers' gathering spot to collect the spies. First, he needed to take White Zetsu and the Root Ninja, followed by other suspected spies. For example, the ninja named Fujimura, though from the Land of Rain, was very likely a spy sent by the Hidden Rain Village and needed thorough investigation. After greeting Kyujuk, Byakuya took the group to an underground chamber within the Akatsuki's base. Entering the chamber, the newcomers looked at Byakuya with unease and confusion. They had heard of Byakuya's reputation and knew his status in the Akatsuki. They were now worried about themselves. After all, this man was infamous for making accidents. Byakuya observed their expressions, noting that the spies' acting skills were quite good. The best among them was the ninja disguised by White Zetsu, whose facial expression showed no fluctuation. After a tense stare down lasting several seconds, Byakuya nodded slightly. I am Byakuya. You've probably heard of my name, thinking of me as the dark side of the Akatsuki, eh? Well, such to be you, that ain't a rumor. Faced with Byakuya's dark humor, the newcomers did not laugh, besides exchanging glances instead. Compared to Yahiko, who stands in the sunlight, I indeed often operate in the shadows. But I believe the light in my heart is no less than Yahiko's, perhaps even more. Anyway, back to you. The reason I chose you to be my subordinates is precisely because of this. I believe there is light in your hearts too. Only those with the brightest hearts can join my department. Hearing Byakuya's speech, the newcomers breathed a sigh of relief. They thought Byakuya had discovered their identities and was about to act against them. It turned out to be a routine speech, one they had heard countless times before. As for the talk of light and darkness, they were so fed up of it. If their leaders didn't have leverage over these spies, who would choose to be a spy, living on a knife edge and unlikely to have their names honored on a memorial stone even after death? While giving his speech, Byakuya observed their reactions. After finishing, he deliberately separated them, confronting each one individually. The first was the spy named Sasaki. The Root Ninja looked at Byakuya, uneasy. Lord Byakuya, is there something wrong? Yup, in many ways. Byakuya glanced at the Root Ninja and directly got to the point. Sasaki, you must be a spy sent by Denzo. Why didn't you contact me earlier? Upon having his identity exposed, the Root spy started sweating bullets. However, upon reflection, it made sense that someone valued by Lord Denzo would see through his disguise, so the Root spy nodded and explained. Lord Byakuya, I plan to notify you later, but you found me first. Byakuya raised a brow with a chilling smile. That's not the case, is it? If I hadn't discovered you, you would have continued to monitor me. That's your true mission in joining the Akatsuki. The Root spy fell silent, as this was indeed the mission Denzo had given him, but it had now failed. Byakuya didn't make things difficult for the Root spy. Instead, he sighed and patted his shoulder. I don't object to Denzo's arrangements, but Leader Yahiko has already noticed something off about your group of ninjas. He specifically asked me to manage you all, to see if there were any spies among you. Hearing this, the Root spy was stunned. During the interview process, he hadn't noticed any other spies. Could there really be more? After pondering for a moment, the Root spy asked, Lord Byakuya, what should I do now? Byakuya thought seriously for a moment and then, with a stern expression, he smiled. You have to work diligently now. Use your enthusiasm for work to dispel Leader Yahiko's suspicions. Otherwise, even I won't be able to protect you. The Root spy quickly nodded in agreement. Though he felt something was off, his identity had already been exposed. He had no choice but to follow Byakuya's instructions. Otherwise, if Byakuya wouldn't eliminate him, Lord Denzo would go after his grave. After warning the Root spy, Byakuya left the forest and approached the others. With the other spies, Byakuya wasted no words, directly using the adamantine sealing chains to forcibly inscribe a curse mark on them. Since they chose to become spies, they had to accept the fate of being used as tools. When Byakuya found the last spy, White Zetsu, he was a little confused about him. Would the curse mark work on White Zetsu? What if he inadvertently discovered White Zetsu's true nature? After hesitating for a while, Byakuya still inscribed the curse mark, deciding it was necessary to treat everyone equally. Once the curse mark was inscribed, Byakuya noticed that this White Zetsu's body seemed no different from a normal human's. Could the system have made an error? Quickly dismissing this thought, Byakuya realized that this person was likely a real ninja, merely parasitized by White Zetsu's spore technique, making it difficult to detect. However, even under his command, White Zetsu would be utilized to its full potential. There would be no waste. Chapter 55, Limits of the Akatsuki Anbu, Bonus. After meeting all the new recruits and issuing the command to assemble early tomorrow morning, Byakuya returned to his room, satisfied. He slept peacefully on his 1.8-meter bed. In his mind, he named the new division the Akatsuki Anbu. Meanwhile, a stark contrast unfolded among the ranks of the newly christened Akatsuki Anbu. Sleep was a foreign concept for them the night before. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring or if there would even be a tomorrow. Unlike the battlefield where death was a familiar prospect, here, with their identities exposed and the stigma of being spies clinging to them, the specter of death felt cold and unforgiving. After a night of worry, they arrived at yesterday's training ground. Each of them had dark circles under their eyes and looked uneasily at Byakuya standing in the center. Next to Byakuya stood a figure with red hair, likely a medical ninja judging by her attire. This made them more convinced that Byakuya was there to torture them. After all, torture inevitably led to injuries, and the presence of a medical ninja could prolong interrogation. Strangely, Byakuya did not reveal their identities nor did he kill them immediately. He simply pointed behind him to the rainforest before issuing the order. Do you see the mountain back there? Your task today is to clear the trees on that mountain. Upon hearing this, members of the Akatsuki Anbu furrowed their brows, not understanding Byakuya's intentions. However, since last night they had been cursed and had no way to resist. They could only obey Byakuya's orders and clear the rainforest. Clearing the rainforest was no easy task, even for ninjas trying to deal with bushes and vines. After all, a ninja's chakra is limited. Once deprived of chakra, they are not much different from ordinary people, and doing the same work as ordinary people is humiliating for ninjas. Still, under Byakuya's watchful gaze, they gritted their teeth and attacked the undergrowth. They tirelessly cleared a path in the mountains and used ninjutsu to gather the wood, transporting it back to the Akatsuki base. After working the entire morning, the members of the Akatsuki Anbu finally heard the command to rest. Returning to the makeshift camp, they saw lunch laid out on the table, vegetables and meat, truly a generous spread. The nearby Akatsuki members eagerly served them, showing no hint of looking down on them. Moreover, injured members among them received medical attention from Akon. These actions left them puzzled, their eyes showing disbelief. What does Byakuya really want to do? Hasn't he revealed our identities as spies? Or does he intend to use this kindness to extract information from us? They wondered. This confusion wasn't just among the Akatsuki Anbu, it extended to Yahiko and Nagato. After Byakuya revealed the new members' identities yesterday, although they said they would leave it to Byakuya to handle, they were still concerned about what would happen next. But after observing the morning's events, they were perplexed. Didn't Byakuya say most of these people were spies? Why hasn't he interrogated any of them and instead brought them to clear land behind the Akatsuki base? Could this be some new form of torture? It didn't seem like it. After pondering for a moment, Yahiko turned to Nagato and asked. Nagato, Byakuya is your clansman. Do you know what he is trying to achieve? Nagato shook his head at first, then replied confidently. He might be planning to work them to death. With the intensity of this labor and without adequate food or water, they won't last long. Yahiko was about to nod when he noticed the provisions at the camp. Do you think this food is lacking? It seems better than what we had a few months ago. Nagato fell silent. He didn't have much education and wasn't sure what was really going on. At that moment, Byakuya, who had long noticed Yahiko and Nagato's presence, walked over and patted Yahiko on the shoulder, saying, Leader Yahiko, didn't you leave them to the dear army? Why have you come over? I was a bit concerned, so I came. Your handling of this situation has surprised me a bit. I thought you might just. Yahiko hesitated, but his meaning was clear. Byakuya glanced at Yahiko and coldly huffed. Leader Yahiko, as our senior, you should stop believing in those rumors. I am not someone who casually kills, even if they are foreign spies. As the leader, you should still remember the ideals of the Akatsuki. Our Akatsuki organization strives for mutual understanding among people. Our ideal is to create a world without conflict and unite them together. So even though they are spies, I am willing to give them a chance to communicate. After all, hatred will only continue if we don't cooperate. I have convinced them, and they are willing to work for our organization without needing any reward. Leader Yahiko, when did you forget all this? Man, his asshole must be really jealous of his mouth from the amount of BS he can spew from that hole. Byakuya's words sounded logical and were indeed things he had previously said. However, Yahiko couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. While he advocated for peaceful communication, these were spies sent by major powers. Could they be persuaded so easily? There must be something wrong with the process. Yahiko contemplated deeply, focusing on the communication aspect. He persuaded others by emphasizing the benefits of cooperation and the consequences of non-cooperation. Byakuya might resort to force, forcing compliance. Thinking of this, Yahiko's gaze at Byakuya became strange, unsure of what to say. He thought Byakuya would have killed them all, but he didn't. Instead, he used the Akatsuki's ideals to convert these people, completely exceeding Yahiko's psychological expectations. But if left unchecked, would Byakuya continue using reason to persuade others in the future? Yahiko was about to say something when he realized Byakuya had already left, giving him no chance to speak. Sighing inwardly, Yahiko turned to Nagato beside him. Nagato, what do you think of Byakuya's approach? Nagato pondered for a moment before nodding. I think Byakuya is doing well. He's implementing the ideals you've talked about, Yahiko, and this time, he really didn't kill anyone. Hearing this, Yahiko felt a chill in his heart. Even Nagato was being influenced by Byakuya. However, seeing Byakuya getting along with the new members, Yahiko decided to keep his thoughts to himself for now. Using such methods against spies was one thing, but it couldn't be applied to regular members. If the Akatsuki uses Byakuya's methods to control its members, it would be inferior even to the 5 great shinobi villages. It seemed he needed to find an opportunity to talk to Byakuya. Chapter 56, Yahiko's letter. Besides Yahiko and Nagato, Black Zetsu also observes Byakuya in the shadows. Yesterday, when Byakuya suddenly approached White Zetsu, Black Zetsu worried that White Zetsu's identity might have been exposed. However, he discovered that Byakuya had placed a curse mark on all the ninjas except the root spies, which eased his mind. Black Zetsu is also secretly relieved that he hadn't directly sent White Zetsu but had instead possessed a ninja. Given the difference between White Zetsu and human anatomy, White Zetsu's presence might have been exposed otherwise. As for Byakuya's behavior of controlling his subordinates with curse marks, Black Zetsu is already used to such tactics. Many organizations and clans in the ninja world use similar methods to control their subordinates, with loosely structured organizations like Akatsuki being rare. However, after observing Byakuya over the past few days and reading his diary, Black Zetsu begins to doubt Byakuya's identity. According to the version circulated within the Akatsuki, Byakuya is a homeless orphan from an ordinary ninja family who joined the Akatsuki by chance. The orphan part is believable, but being from an ordinary ninja family is impossible. Judging by Byakuya's displayed skills and talents, his parents are at least Jonin and related to the now destroyed land of whirlpools. Byakuya did not join the Akatsuki by luck but through careful planning. He joined because of Nagato, who is his clan member. Rescuing Karen was also for the same reason, to gather the scattered members of the Uzumaki clan across the ninja world. What would Byakuya do next after collecting the Uzumaki clan members? Black Zetsu had speculated before, but witnessing Byakuya's act of controlling spies with curse marks confirmed his suspicions. Byakuya, being a high-ranking member of the Akatsuki, secretly trained a private army and colluded with external forces for a simple reason. Byakuya wants to rebuild the destroyed land of whirlpools in a land of rain. Black Zetsu can't think of any other possibilities. Nevertheless, for an orphan escaping from the land of whirlpools to achieve this is already impressive. This reminded Black Zetsu of his own 1,000-year history. He has been diligently working to revive his mother and now finally sees hope. In this sense, he and Byakuya are very similar. The only difference is that no one knows Black Zetsu's plan, while he has already discovered Byakuya's plan. By understanding Byakuya's desire to restore his nation, Black Zetsu could gain a pawn almost as valuable as Madara Uchiha. In this way, even if Madara's plan fails, Black Zetsu could use Byakuya as the sacrificial vessel to resurrect the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. After all, from a bloodline perspective, Byakuya is not inferior to his fellow clan member, Nagato, and also possesses significant ambition. However, this backup plan cannot be rushed. If Madara suspects something, it would not be worth the risk. Within the borders of the Land of Grass, in the Hidden Leaf Village camp. After Hidden Leaf Village's victory in the Battle of Kanabi Bridge, the camp atmosphere becomes noticeably more relaxed. Everyone knows that although the war with Hidden Stones Village is not over, a large-scale conflict is no longer what came to their doorsteps, and signing a peace agreement is just a matter of time. However, this is the view of the Chunin and Geinin in the village. For the frontline commander like Jiraiya, the battlefield is far from over and could restart at any moment. So he could not afford to be careless. Just then, Minato Namikaze entered the command room along with Kakashi Hatake and Rin Nohara. Seeing his student and grand student, Jiraiya put down the reports and asked, "Minato, what brings you here? Do you have important information to report?" Minato shook his head with a somewhat troubled smile. "Jiraiya-sensei, I'm not the one looking for you. Someone else is." Hearing this, Jiraiya looked at Kakashi and Rin. Kakashi came forward and handed Jiraiya a letter. "Lord Jiraiya, this was given to us by a ninja from the Land of Rain. They said it's for you." "A ninja from the Land of Rain?" Jiraiya frowned, thinking of Hanzo of the Salamander. If Hanzo were to intervene in the war between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village at this time, the future would become unpredictable. However, after receiving the letter, Jiraiya's face broke into a slight smile. This is because the envelope has a cute frog seal on it, a method he taught to Yahiko, Konan, and Nagato. Opening the letter, Jiraiya began to read it carefully, his smile growing wider. Seeing Jiraiya smile like that, Minato also followed with a talk. "Jiraiya-sensei, this letter must be from Yahiko and the others." Jiraiya nodded lightly and smiled. "Yes, I didn't expect them to achieve so much in the Land of Rain, realizing everything I once talked about. That's great news. Our village will have another ally in the Land of Rain." Minato also smiled. Hearing the conversation between Jiraiya and Minato, Kakashi and Rin frowned, not understanding what Minato-sensei and Jiraiya-sama were talking about. Wasn't the letter delivered by a ninja from Hidden Rain Village? Noticing their confusion, Minato quickly explained. "Kakashi, Rin, do you remember the ninja from the Land of Rain we encountered a few months ago? They later participated in Rin's rescue." Of course, Kakashi and Rin remembered, but what did this have to do with Jiraiya-sama? Minato continued, "Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan are all Jiraiya-sensei's disciples, and they established an organization called Akatsuki in the Land of Rain." "Akatsuki?" Kakashi was startled, his eyes wide open. "I remember Byakuya mentioned it. He tried to recruit Obito and me, but we refused." "So, it was Jiraiya-sama's disciples who established that organization." Rin's memories also surfaced. "So, when Byakuya warned Obito not to step on the explosive tag, was it because they knew our identities?" "Probably, otherwise they had no reason to help ninjas from another village." Obito. Whenever they spoke of the past, Kakashi and Rin couldn't help but mention Obito, their voices filled with regret and sorrow. Minato and Jiraiya were also affected by the atmosphere and fell silent for a while. After a moment, Minato turned the topic. "Let's not dwell on the past. Obito is a hero on the Memorial Stone. Once this war is over, we'll go together to pay our respects." Jiraiya, who was not very familiar with Obito, also offered a few words of comfort to Kakashi and Rin. At that moment, Kakashi seemed to remember something. "By the way, Jiraiya-sama, do you know Byakuya? He seems to be a prominent figure in Akatsuki." "Byakuya?" Jiraiya shook his head slightly. "I don't know him, but he was mentioned several times in the letter. He seems to be an interesting person, though Yahiko seems to be somewhat troubled by him." Chapter 57, The Movements of the Hidden Mist Village. Hidden Mist Village, is Yahiko feeling troubled? Upon hearing this, everyone present showed a bit more interest in Byakuya, turning their heads to look at Jiraiya. Jiraiya did not hide anything and began to talk about the contents of the letter. After hearing the contents of the letter, Kakashi's and Rin's expressions became somewhat peculiar. Yahiko seemed to like Byakuya a lot. He couldn't go 3 sentences without mentioning Byakuya, appearing quite frequently. However, recalling their previous encounters with Byakuya, the two understood. Apart from looking somewhat young, Byakuya was indeed a very reliable ninja. Minato's focus was not on this. In the letter, Yahiko mentioned the difficulties Akatsuki faced during its development and the solutions they employed. These issues piqued Minato's interest, and he pondered potential solutions. Eventually, he realized that the solutions he thought of were not as good as the ones proposed by Byakuya. This realization caused Minato to feel a slight sense of defeat. After all, although he was currently only a jonin of Hidden Leaf Village, he aspired to run for the 4th Hokage. He consistently tried to solve problems with the mindset of a Hokage, only to find himself outmatched by a boy roughly the same age as Kakashi. Nevertheless, he would not be discouraged by such a minor setback. Admitting his shortcomings and striving to improve was the path to becoming stronger. Neither the 3rd Hokage nor Jiraiya-sensei was revered by their comrades from the beginning. After reading the entire letter, Jiraiya gazed in the direction of the Land of Rain and mused to himself, "I really want to see Yahiko and the Akatsuki organization they've established with my own eyes." Minato heard Jiraiya's sigh and understood that Jiraiya wanted to go out and find Yahiko and his companions. However, Jiraiya was the top commander on the Hidden Stones village front lines. It would be reckless to abandon his troops and contact an underground organization in another country's territory. Thinking of this, Minato reminded him, Jiraiya-sensei, if you miss Yahiko and his group, you can write them a letter. Didn't the previous communication frog get lost? You can send a new one this time. Thanks to Minato's reminder, Jiraiya gradually came to his senses. It is true that, with his current status, he couldn't appear in the Land of Rain. Doing so would not only alert Hanzo the Salamander but also implicate the Akatsuki organization. However, just receiving news from Yahiko and the others already made Jiraiya very satisfied. After politely seeing off Minato and the others, Jiraiya began to write a reply. As he wrote, memories of the past surfaced, bringing a faint smile to his lips. After some contemplation, Jiraiya erased the criticisms of Akatsuki from the letter. He simply expressed his concern with a few greetings, avoiding topics related to ninja villages or countries. Once the letter was finished, Jiraiya summoned a toad from Mount Mayabaku. Watching the toad swallow the reply, he continued handling the military affairs on his desk. Jiraiya was very content with his current life. Both of the prophesied children he had been looking for had become capable ninjas. Perhaps in a few more years, peace would finally come to the ninja world. He just wasn't sure if he would live to see that day. Jiraiya's good mood didn't last long, as it was interrupted by Minato, who had returned with a grave expression. Seeing Minato's serious demeanor, Jiraiya had a foreboding feeling but remained calm. Minato, what's the matter? It's information from the village. Hidden Mist Village of the Land of Water has launched a large-scale invasion of the Land of Fire. Hidden Mist Village has invaded. Jiraiya was struck as if by lightning, his expression turning extremely grim. The invasion by the Hidden Mist Village was certainly not good news for Hidden Leaf Village. In this ninja war, Hidden Mist Village had been the only village that hadn't attacked Hidden Leaf Village. Now they had launched an invasion. This meant that Hidden Leaf Village faced attacks from every direction except from Hidden Sand Village, with whom they had signed a treaty. The once quieting conflict on the Hidden Stones Village front could flare up again at any moment. After some contemplation, Jiraiya asked Minato, have we found out why the Hidden Mist Village launched the war? Who did the village send to counter the invasion? The reason for the war is still unclear, but the village sent the Hyuga and Uchiha clans to deal with the Hidden Mist Village. Jiraiya frowned before asking again. The Hyuga and Uchiha clan ninjas? Aren't they both particularly vulnerable to the Hidden Mist Village's water-style techniques? This is the third Hokage's order. Besides the Hyuga and Uchiha clans, the village doesn't have other military forces available. Only the Hyuga and Uchiha can counter the Hidden Mist Village's KK Genkai. After a brief pause, Minato continued. I've already requested to be transferred to the Hidden Mist front. I'll leave the Hidden Stones Village front to you, sensei. Please be careful. Jiraiya, looking at his proud student, smiled. Don't worry about me. I'm the renowned Toad Sage. Handling 2 Jinchuriki is no problem for me. Then I'm relieved. Without wasting any time, Minato left the command room. Watching Minato's back, Jiraiya sighed softly. He had thought peace was on the horizon, but now everything was uncertain again. Even he couldn't predict the future. Outside the command room, Kakashi and Rin had been waiting for a while. Minato, looking at his last 2 students with a complex expression, said, I'm sorry, but I have to take you on another mission. This time, we are heading east to eliminate the Hidden Mist ninjas who have invaded the Land of Fire. Rin, after this war is over, I will find a way to let you retire. Rin's eyes sparkled with determination as she shook her head. No, Minato-sensei, I've given up on retiring. Obito died for me and Kakashi. If I choose to run away now, it would be an insult to Obito's sacrifice. Hearing this, Minato's expression became even more complicated. Kakashi and Rin hadn't yet escaped the shadow of Obito's death, but the war wouldn't give them much time to process it. If they couldn't grow from this, they wouldn't get another chance. Kakashi and Rin had learned to grow, but Obito no longer had that opportunity. After a brief conversation, Minato, Kakashi, and Rin set off toward the eastern part of the Land of Fire, disappearing into the dense forest. Along the way, a small toad dispatched by Jiraiya carried the letter. The toad's mission was to find the Akatsuki ninjas and deliver a summoning contract, allowing Jiraiya to maintain contact with Yahiko and the others. However, as it passed by a pond, a giant tongue shot out from the water and swallowed the toad whole, pulling it to the pond's bottom. Strangely, the small toad, being a summoning beast, did not resist at all. Chapter 58, Ninja Cost Effectiveness. Why hasn't Jiraiya-sensei replied yet? Could something have happened? A few days later, in the Akatsuki office, Yahiko, who hadn't received a reply, began to wonder. However, Yahiko quickly dismissed this bold thought. Jiraiya-sensei was one of the 3 legendary Sannin of Hidden Leaf Village. His performance in the war was on par with the 5 Kage, making him one of the top ninjas in the world. Even if Akatsuki were to be destroyed, Jiraiya-sensei would be fine. Could it be that Jiraiya-sensei hadn't received the letter? But Conan had clearly handed the letter to Kakashi. Kakashi was Minato's disciple and a jonin of Hidden Leaf Village. He should have been able to see Jiraiya-sensei. Perhaps the ongoing conflict with Hidden Stones Village had occupied too much of Jiraiya-sensei's attention, and he simply hadn't had time to reply yet. With this thought, Yahiko convinced himself and didn't dwell on the matter. As the leader of Akatsuki, he had a lot of work to handle daily. Besides the routine paperwork, he also needed to care for his subordinates in various departments and even had to squeeze in time for training. Instead of wasting time wondering why Jiraiya-sensei hadn't replied, it would be better to take the time to visit him. However, that would have to wait until the war was over. Given the current situation among the nations, meeting with Jiraiya-sensei would be difficult and could easily be exploited by those with ill intentions. Pulling his wandering thoughts back, Yahiko stood by the window, looking at the distant scenery. Since Byakuya gathered spies and established the Akatsuki Anbu, the Akatsuki base had undergone significant construction. They cut down surrounding forests, built canals, and paved roads. What was once a village-sized base gradually evolved into a town. However, Yahiko found the term Anbu somewhat inappropriate. Anbu were supposed to be assassination squads, but Byakuya's Anbu was more like a prison camp, exploiting spies infiltrating the organization. Yahiko could tolerate this behavior. As for Byakuya, after several weeks of hard work, the Anbu members gradually realized that Byakuya wasn't making them clear land and engaged in infrastructure projects to torture them for information. He was simply using them as free labor, making them work hard in the mountains. Once this became clear, many Anbu members began to slack off, using only a fraction of their strength and even sneaking in naps while Byakuya was resting. The only exception among them was White Zetsu. As a plant-based being, White Zetsu could survive on photosynthesis alone and work tirelessly, never seeming to tire. Besides being quite talkative, White Zetsu was essentially perfect labor. The other Anbu members watched White Zetsu working tirelessly, drenched in sweat, and couldn't help but grit their teeth in frustration. Dude, don't forget you're a spy too. Do you really need to work this hard? Could it be that you're actually a spy sent by Byakuya to infiltrate the group of spies? After a full day of hard work, Byakuya moved the book from his face and looked at his Anbu members. Let me see how well you've completed today's tasks. Hearing Byakuya's lazy tone, the Anbu members hurriedly nodded. Facing Byakuya, they were too afraid to voice their anger. They were willing to endure the hardship because their lives were more important. As spies, they had always worked 24/7, constantly worried about exposing their identities. Now that their identities were revealed, they resigned themselves to their fate. There was no need to live in constant fear anymore, as resistance was futile. Not only did Byakuya control their lives with a curse mark, but even without it, they couldn't overpower him. The intelligence they had received was false. Byakuya wasn't a mere chunin approaching jonin level, his strength was at least that of an elite jonin. In any major ninja village, he could hold a high-ranking position. Byakuya flew into the air, surveyed the construction site, and nodded in satisfaction. The productivity of ninjas was indeed extraordinary. Even when slacking off, they were dozens of times more efficient than ordinary people. No wonder the ninja world hadn't yet widely adopted chakra tools. It wasn't that chakra tools were unaffordable, but that ninjas were simply more cost-effective. Returning to the ground, Byakuya brought the Anbu members to the training ground. While distributing today's food, he also gave them paper and pens. Seeing the paper and pens, the Anbu members' expressions changed. After weeks of pretending, Byakuya was finally showing his true colors. However, based on their recent experiences, they were not yet willing to betray their respective villages. They were ninjas with strong beliefs, and even facing death, they wouldn't sell out their villages. Byakuya took note of their expressions. He didn't actually care about the information they held. If he truly wanted intelligence, he had Nagato's Rinnegan's backing. Nagato's interrogation techniques were highly efficient, capable of directly extracting souls for questioning. Though it did tend to be lethal. Moreover, judging by the chakra levels and ranks of these individuals, Byakuya realized they might not even know as much about their village's secrets as he did. There was no need to extract intelligence from them. After a moment of contemplation, Byakuya's cold voice broke the silence. We, the Akatsuki, are a humane organization. You've been here for 2 weeks now, it's time to write home and report your safety. Hearing this, the Anbu members were stunned. Byakuya wasn't interrogating them, he was allowing them to send information back to their villages, fulfilling their mission of infiltrating Akatsuki. But during their time in Akatsuki, all they had done was work and sleep. They hadn't had any opportunities to gather intelligence. They didn't know what to write, and they doubted whether Byakuya would alter their letters. They even suspected that Byakuya was giving them this chance so they would work for Akatsuki a few more days. After all, many of them had weaknesses back in their villages, in addition to Byakuya's curse mark on them. Seeing through their thoughts, Byakuya continued. Rest assured, I won't read or alter your letters. Akatsuki is not an enemy of the major ninja villages. We just want to stay peacefully within the Land of Rain, protecting the civilians here. These past few days, you've observed Akatsuki and know we harbor no ill intentions. Peace-loving my ass. A peace-loving organization identifies spies and instead of punishing them, it uses the spies for manual labor like animals and also implants the cursed seal on them. But seeing Byakuya being so forthright, the ANBU members could only exchange helpless glances before they began writing their reports. Whether or not their letters would be intercepted, they genuinely wanted their superiors to know about their current predicament. If their villages could rescue them, that would be ideal. If not, at least it would serve as a warning to future infiltrators that Akatsuki, despite being newly established, had the ability to identify spies. As for whether Akatsuki had ambitions, they couldn't be sure. Chapter 59, Byakuya's Indifference. Byakuya kept his word and did not spy on the information these individuals had written. He allowed them to summon their familiars and used reverse summoning techniques to send the information back to their respective ninja villages. However, few spies dared to send information about the Akatsuki. Most kept a close watch on Byakuya, not daring to make a move. Seeing this, Byakuya temporarily left the training ground, giving them time to think. As Byakuya walked away, a few bold ninjas followed him. When he turned around, they immediately laid their minds bare. Lord Byakuya, we are spies from the Land of Wind. Hearing this, Byakuya glanced at them before replying. I know you are spies. I gave you ample time to transmit information. Isn't that your goal in infiltrating the Akatsuki? The spies from Hidden Sand Village exchanged glances, hesitating before shaking their heads helplessly. We came because we want to join the Akatsuki. Byakuya was taken aback but showed no commanding presence. He then asked. Aren't you already members of the Akatsuki and part of my ANBU? We truly want to join the Akatsuki, the real one. After our experiences these past few days, we feel the Akatsuki is the only real ninja organization. The 5 great ninja villages can't compare to the system of this small organization. Byakuya responded indifferently, come straight to the point and explain properly. The spies from the Land of Wind took a deep breath before continuing while gritting their teeth. Lord Byakuya, we had no choice. If news of our capture reaches Hidden Sand Village, we will be branded as traitors, and our families will be in danger. Instead of living like this, Lord Byakuya, you might as well kill us or let us join the Akatsuki and become part of the organization. After hearing this, Byakuya looked at the spies from Hidden Sand Village with interest. Gathering the spies together had been an impromptu idea of his, aiming to conduct a social experiment. According to his plan, these spies should have approached him after several months or half a year. He didn't expect the spies from Hidden Sand Village to waver so quickly, but how much truth there was in their words was uncertain. Nonetheless, this didn't stop him from making grand promises to them. I am pleased with your willingness to surrender. However, since you are ninjas from another village, you can only become official members of the Akatsuki after severing ties with Hidden Sand Village. With that, Byakuya turned and left, leaving an inscrutable figure behind. Enough time had passed for these people to send information to their villages. Even if they hadn't, there would be other opportunities next time. The spies from Hidden Sand Village exchanged glances. They seemed to have received a promise, yet not entirely. After leaving the training ground, Byakuya activated his mind's eye of Kagura and sensed the ANBU beginning to write letters. He nodded in satisfaction. Even at such a time, there were still those daring enough to send out information. However, he wasn't worried about the Akatsuki's information being leaked. In fact, he intended for it to be leaked. The Akatsuki had reached a bottleneck in its development. For the next phase of expansion, they either had to attack other countries or confront Hidden Rain Village. Given Yahiko and the others' personalities, convincing them to take the initiative was difficult. Unless it was a defensive counterattack, which would not only be morally justifiable but also provide an opportunity to expand Akatsuki's influence. For Byakuya, it would be best if Hidden Rain Village took the initiative to attack. Continuing to develop was also an option. A few hours later, hiding in a dark cave, Denzo received 2 intelligence scrolls, one from an ordinary spy en route and the other from the news spy, Byakuya. Before opening the scrolls, Denzo specifically summoned Ryuma Barame. Ryuma looked extremely uneasy. He didn't know what the intelligence scrolls contained, but he knew Denzo intended to use Byakuya as a test subject to gain experience for a future coup. His life was becoming increasingly bleak. Once Ryuma arrived, Denzo first opened the scroll from the root spy. The scroll detailed the spy's observations within the Akatsuki and Byakuya's actions toward them, filled with accusations against Byakuya. Denzo didn't care about the root spy's complaints against Byakuya. To him, a subordinate at the Chunin level is merely expendable. Even if Byakuya killed this subordinate, Denzo would only send a reprimand note, without reducing the support provided. After reading the entire content, Denzo didn't rush to open Byakuya's scroll but looked at Ryuma. His gaze seemed to ask, "Ryuma, what do you think?" Ryuma took the root spy's scroll, glanced at it, and his expression immediately turned grim. He didn't understand what Byakuya was trying to do. After a moment of contemplation, Ryuma said with some hesitation, "I don't understand Byakuya's intentions. Since he captured spies infiltrating the Akatsuki, why didn't he interrogate them? Wouldn't making them disappear be more effective?" Denzo glanced at Ryuma before explaining calmly. "Ryuma, you still don't see the bigger picture. Byakuya neither wants nor needs to know the information from the major ninja villages because the Akatsuki currently lacks the strength to oppose them. His decision not to kill these ninjas serves two purposes: 1, to show the major ninja villages his stance, and 2, to find a way to secretly contact foreign forces, preparing for a future coup." Again with the coup plans. Ryuma felt powerless to complain. However, Denzo did make some valid points, otherwise, Byakuya's actions couldn't be explained. By this time, Denzo had already picked up Byakuya's intelligence scroll and casually glanced through it before tossing it to Ryuma. "Look at Byakuya's report. Isn't it quite similar to what I just said?" Ryuma took the scroll and read it carefully. His expression changed several times as he processed the useful content. The main points were, 1. An explanation for his control over the root spy, requesting Denzo's understanding. 2. A request for the next phase of support, including military aid. After reading, Ryuma looked at Denzo and curiously asked, "Lord Denzo, what is our next step?" Denzo didn't keep him guessing and replied directly. "Continue to provide Byakuya with the support he needs. We don't need to worry about the rest. In time, Byakuya and the Akatsuki will yield satisfactory results for us. As long as Hidden Rain Village descends into chaos, our village will benefit greatly from the ensuing conflict." "Yes, Lord Denzo." Ryuma nodded quickly, though he inwardly scoffed at Denzo's final remark. Denzo's interest in the Land of Rain was never about Hidden Leaf Village, it was always about himself. If Byakuya succeeded in his coup, it would provide valuable experience for Denzo's own plans. If Byakuya failed, Denzo would suffer little loss, as he was spending the village's resources. Then again, how many of the village's higher-ups weren't looking out for themselves? Those lofty leaders constantly preached about the will of fire, yet their covert tactics surpassed even Denzo's, unwilling to sully their hands with the slightest bit of darkness. Chapter 60. Waiting for the opportunity. At the same time, another person received a letter, Hanzo of the Salamander from Hidden Rain Village. 2 months ago, after hearing about a group called the Akatsuki emerging within the Land of Rain, Hanzo finally started paying attention to domestic affairs. To gather information on the Akatsuki, he even sent spies to join the organization, aiming to obtain first-hand intelligence. Upon opening the letter from his subordinates, Hanzo paused. The first sentence mentioned that the spy had been captured by the Akatsuki ninja and was undergoing inhumane torture and humiliation. This made Hanzo instinctively frown. But on further reflection, he found something odd. If his spy were truly being tortured, this letter would never have reached him. Moreover, spies are naturally prone to exposure and torture, which is quite normal. Thinking this, Hanzo grew more interested in the Akatsuki. Continuing to read, he noted the details of the torture and information about the Akatsuki's structure and philosophy. His frown eased considerably. The Akatsuki indeed appeared to be a peace-oriented organization, striving to convey messages of peace to the outside world. From Byakuya's use of spies from various factions as labor, Hanzo understood that the Akatsuki was genuinely implementing the concept of mutual understanding among people. If he had discovered spies in Hidden Rain Village, they would have faced severe torture. Having such an organization emerge in a Land of Rain was, in a way, a stroke of luck for the country. However, as the ruler of Hidden Rain Village, Hanzo considered more than just this. He contemplated the possibility of the Akatsuki joining Hidden Rain Village as his subordinates. If they did, they could undoubtedly bring new vitality to the decaying village. Moreover, it would solve his issue of finding a successor. Yahiko, Nagato, and Byakuya were not only young but also had the strength of Jonin. Given time, they could lead the Land of Rain, potentially turning Hidden Rain Village into the 6th great ninja village. But all of this depended on whether Yahiko and the Akatsuki's ideals are genuine. They needed to be a truly peaceful organization, not just using peace as a facade to secretly plan to overthrow him. With this in mind, Hanzo looked at a one-eyed Jonin nearby. "I have a task for you to complete." "Please, Lord Hanzo, give your orders." Go to the Akatsuki in my name and find out what the situation within the organization truly is. Upon hearing the order, the Hidden Rain Village Jonin nodded quickly. Although he didn't know why Lord Hanzo wanted him to visit the Akatsuki, it was a rare and positive sign that the usually indifferent Hanzo was taking an interest in domestic affairs. The Akatsuki was somewhat familiar to him. It was said to be an independent ninja faction within the Land of Rain, not under Hanzo's command. Could it be that Lord Hanzo had finally decided to clear up the chaos in the Land of Rain? With this thought, the one-eyed Hidden Rain Village Jonin felt a surge of excitement. Wasting no time, Hanzo immediately penned a personal letter. He intended to first establish contact with Yahiko, the leader of the Akatsuki, through the letter and then arrange a face-to-face meeting at an appropriate time. He believed that Yahiko, a native ninja of the Land of Rain, would become his subordinate. After receiving Hanzo's letter, the one-eyed Jonin left Hidden Rain Village. After wandering around the Land of Rain for some time, he finally found Akatsuki members helping villagers in a small village. Seeing the Akatsuki assisting villagers, the one-eyed Jonin felt a bit more favorable toward them. Being able to peacefully interact with the villagers indicated that this Akatsuki was different from other rogue ninja organizations. The Akatsuki members noticed the one-eyed Jonin and became wary. This area was under their team's responsibility. Apart from them, the only other rain ninjas in this area would be either rogue ninjas or Hidden Rain Village ninjas. The former was manageable, but the latter posed a significant threat. Although both Akatsuki members and Hidden Rain Village ninja were from the Land of Rain, they belonged to different factions. The Akatsuki members, having left Hidden Rain Village, were technically considered rogue ninjas. The one-eyed Jonin noticed the Akatsuki members' unease and, after a cold snort, revealed his identity and purpose. If not for Lord Hanzo's specific instructions to avoid causing trouble, he would have already subdued this group. In Hanzo's view, there was no room for a second voice in the Land of Rain. Upon learning the one-eyed Jonin's identity as Hanzo's emissary, the Akatsuki members didn't dare to be careless. They quickly sent a letter to Yahiko with the news. After some time, Yahiko received the message from the Akatsuki members. Realizing that Hanzo's emissary was coming to visit the Akatsuki, Yahiko didn't dare to take it lightly. He immediately summoned the Akatsuki leadership to the meeting room, including Byakuya. Byakuya arrived at the meeting room, casually chose a seat, and asked the anxious Yahiko, "Leader Yahiko, what's going on? Is Hidden Rain Village planning to attack us?" The atmosphere in the meeting room grew tense at his words. If Hidden Rain Village was indeed going to attack the Akatsuki, they could resist with their current strength, but it would be a devastating fight. The reputation of the demigod Hanzo was built on battle achievements. Yahiko glanced at Byakuya, then shook his head and said, "The intel is related to Hidden Rain Village, but it's not about war. Lord Hanzo has taken an interest in the Akatsuki and has sent an emissary to inspect us." At these words, the tension in the room immediately eased. They had truly feared a confrontation with Hidden Rain Village, but if it was merely an inspection, there was still room for maneuver. However, they quickly began to worry again. They were unsure whether Hanzo's emissary was coming solely for an inspection or as a precursor to war. The difference between the two was significant. Regardless, they had to take this visit seriously. This visit was crucial for the future of the Akatsuki. If they could gain Hanzo's approval, the Akatsuki would no longer be a clandestine organization and could expand its influence throughout the Land of Rain. If they failed to gain his approval, they would need to reconsider the Akatsuki's future development. Seeing the growing anxiety among the group, Yahiko spoke up, "We must take this visit from Hanzo's emissary seriously and show him our organization's principles and determination." He glanced at Byakuya, worried that he might provoke Hanzo's emissary during the upcoming interactions. After all, Byakuya had a rather negative view of Hidden Rain Village, always suspecting that they would eventually attack the Akatsuki. Byakuya glanced back at Yahiko but remained silent during the meeting. He had little interest in Hanzo's emissary's visit. As the Akatsuki grew, Hanzo was bound to take notice sooner or later. Hanzo had already sent spies into the Akatsuki. Whether Hanzo would be willing to coexist peacefully with the Akatsuki was uncertain. Byakuya thought there was a possibility, but it was unlikely. Hanzo might have a favorable impression of the Akatsuki, but the leadership of Hidden Rain Village would not agree. The rise of the Akatsuki threatened their interests. Unless Hanzo could unilaterally suppress all opposing voices and force a peaceful coexistence between Hidden Rain Village and the Akatsuki, as well as resolve conflicts between their leaderships, it was unlikely. From what Byakuya knew of Hanzo, he didn't seem capable of such feats. With this in mind, Byakuya quietly left the meeting room. Rather than wasting time discussing how to welcome Hanzo's emissary, he preferred to think about how to deal with Hanzo in the future. Hanzo might be a demigod of the ninja world, but the Akatsuki's current strength wasn't without a chance. Even without Nagato summoning the Jido statue, The Akatsuki currently had 3 members close to Kage-level strength. If the Jado statue was summoned, their advantage over Hanzo would be significant. However, considering Hidden Rain Village backing Hanzo, even if the Akatsuki won, the cost would be enormous, far outweighing the benefits. Therefore, it was essential to wait for a more opportune moment. Chapter 61, The Arrival of Hanzo's Envoy. After leaving the conference room, Byakuya felt like he had forgotten something. Turning back to look at the conference room, he shot a fierce glare and slammed the door behind him. Upon hearing the clang of the closing door, Byakuya nodded quietly to himself, feeling much relieved. In his role within the Akatsuki, him being opposed to Yahiko while also being too gentle could arouse suspicion. Upon hearing the sound of Byakuya slamming the door, Yahiko also felt relieved, though still somewhat concerned. There was an unspoken understanding between Byakuya and Yahiko. If Byakuya didn't publicly refute him, it meant he accepted Yahiko's arrangement, or at least wouldn't sabotage it in secret. After all, despite their differing ideologies, they were ultimately working for the development of the Akatsuki organization. However, Yahiko tended to see the good in things, interpreting situations in a positive light, while Byakuya always assumed the worst intentions in others. After reflecting on this, Yahiko continued to chair the meeting regarding Hanzo's envoy, detailing the reception arrangements in hopes that Hanzo would be satisfied with the Akatsuki. If this friendly meeting could indeed take place, the Akatsuki wouldn't need to worry about threats from the Hidden Rain Village for several years. If not, they would have to prepare early. After all, even though his childhood idol was Hanzo of Salamander, at that time he was just a homeless orphan and posed no threat. Now, as the leader of the Akatsuki organization, he commanded over 100 ninjas, making them a significant force in the ninja world. Even the hero of the Hidden Rain, Hanzo, would feel wary. Unlike Yahiko, who was concerned about the future of the Akatsuki, Byakuya was as calm as still water. After all, Byakuya never worried whether or not the Hidden Rain Village would be disadvantageous to the Akatsuki. In his mind, a clash between the Akatsuki and the Hidden Rain Village was inevitable. It was only a matter of time. Nevertheless, to appease a few hidden observers, Byakuya still put on a displeased expression. He walked all the way to the construction site managed by the Anbu. With a stern face, Byakuya issued orders for overtime work today and personally supervised to prevent any laziness or slack from the Anbu members. Faced with Byakuya's orders, the Anbu members didn't dare to disobey and worked much more efficiently. After all, when Byakuya's face darkened like this, even fools knew he was in a bad mood. It would be suicidal to poke fingers to a hungry lion. However, who exactly had the audacity to provoke Lord Byakuya? Was it Yahiko, the leader of the Akatsuki? Or was it someone else entirely? Akan, who was responsible for supervision, also noticed Byakuya's expression and cautiously asked as she approached, "Lord Byakuya, did you have another argument with Lord Yahiko?" "Anne, remember that Akan is Karen's mother. I changed her name from Karen to Akan because of requests. The original author uses different names sometimes too. Don't know if he is high or what." Byakuya looked at Akan and gently shook his head. "It's just some minor disagreements." Minor disagreements? Akan didn't believe it for a moment. As far as she was concerned, the only people who could anger Byakuya were enemies or their leader, Yahiko. With no external threats to the Akatsuki currently, the only possibility left was their leader, Yahiko. The interests of leader Yahiko and Lord Byakuya were clearly aligned. There was no need for quarrels. Couldn't they just sit down and discuss things seriously? But she didn't intend to meddle in this matter. Lord Byakuya must have already made up his mind. Byakuya spent the entire afternoon at the construction site. Hidden in the shadows, Black Zetsu observed him for the entire afternoon. Since deciding to groom Byakuya as the next pawn, he had been secretly observing him. He would wait for the right moment to appear, then gradually gain Byakuya's trust and influence him, making Byakuya a participant in the Eye of the Moon plan and increasing the chances of freeing his mother. However, Black Zetsu hadn't figured out how exactly to approach Byakuya yet. Based on Byakuya's current strength and demeanor, Black Zetsu couldn't guarantee that appearing in front of him wouldn't raise Byakuya's suspicions. After all, except for the proud and arrogant Uchiha, anyone would be suspicious of his current appearance. Once suspicion took root, none of his tricks or words would be effective. Just then, Black Zetsu noticed that Byakuya seemed to have finished writing something. Leaving behind a paper clone in place, he headed towards the depths of the forest. What Byakuya wrote was naturally a mission report for Denzo. Given his relationship with Denzo, for such a major event as the arrival of Hanzo's envoy, it was natural to inform Denzo, their benefactor, and urge him to quickly send the next batch of assistance. And on the other hand, it was also done for the eyes of the hidden Madara Uchiha. After arriving at a cliff outside the base, Byakuya used ninjutsu to summon a ninja eagle and placed the letter. After that, he returned to the base of the Akatsuki. Seeing this scene, Black Zetsu's eyes lit up instantly. He knew that Byakuya had been secretly colluding with ninja from other factions, but he wasn't sure which factions Ninja Byakuya was colluding with. If he could figure this out, it would be much easier to approach Byakuya. Patiently waiting for Byakuya to leave, Black Zetsu dove into the ground and swiftly headed toward the location of the ninja eagle. Bursting out of the ground, he reached out and grabbed the ninja eagle flying low. Black Zetsu didn't immediately kill the ninja eagle. Instead, he let Byakuya control the ninja eagle while he slowly opened the letter that Byakuya had sent to Denzo. After scanning it briefly, Black Zetsu resealed the letter and released the ninja eagle. The contents of the letter were simple, just Byakuya informing Denzo that the ambassador would soon arrive at the Akatsuki. However, within these few sentences, there was a wealth of information. Firstly, the ninja Byakuya was colluding with belonged to Hidden Leaf Village's Hokage assistant. Secondly, Byakuya had leaked the impending arrival of Ambassador Hanzo, which could be considered a betrayal of the Akatsuki. More importantly, Black Zetsu had already vaguely guessed the reason why Byakuya was colluding with the Hokage's assistant. He wanted to overthrow Yahiko and become the true leader of the Akatsuki. But knowing just this wasn't enough for Black Zetsu. He planned to groom Byakuya as a pawn, not watch him become the leader of the Akatsuki. Before that, he had to earn Byakuya's trust and do him a big favor. So, in a sense, this Hokage's assistant was actually his competitor. He had to defeat this competitor to make Byakuya his pawn. As his thoughts gradually refocused, Black Zetsu looked towards the ninja eagle, now a distant dot, and pursued it. This time, the harvest from intercepting the ninja eagle was quite good. At least he now knew who his competitor was, and he had also devised a complete plan on how to gain Byakuya's trust. Just thinking about the increased probability of reviving his mother made Black Zetsu feel much better. Equally satisfying was Byakuya's use of the mayfly technique to secretly infiltrate. Now that he finally knew who had been spying on him recently. In Byakuya's mind, there was only one person who could audaciously use the pitcher plant monster technique, Black Zetsu. Chapter 62, Proactive Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu, full name Kaguya Otsutsuki Black Zetsu. He is the third child of Kaguya Otsutsuki, besides Hagoromo and Hamura, gender unknown, belonging to the noble Otsutsuki clan. It is said that many children of the Otsutsuki clan have a tradition of persecuting their parents. However, unlike his two disobedient brothers who join forces to seal Kaguya, Black Zetsu is a true filial child who has lurked in the ninja world for millennia, striving toward a single goal. That goal is to collect the tailed beasts to revive the Ten Tails and free Kaguya from her seal. In the original storyline, after millennia of effort, Black Zetsu almost achieved his wish. Unfortunately, the disobedient Sage of Six Paths was one step ahead. While Black Zetsu was striving to rescue his mother, the Sage of Six Paths was already contemplating how to seal Kaguya again. Otherwise, during the Fourth Great Ninja War, Naruto's process of dealing with Kaguya Otsutsuki wouldn't have been so smooth. Upon learning that Black Zetsu was targeting him, Byakuya was somewhat puzzled. He remembered Black Zetsu appearing when Madara Uchiha committed suicide, but now he was showing up early. Could it be that Madara Uchiha had already committed suicide? If that was true, then it meant that Obito had completed his transformation. However, despite the confusion, Byakuya wouldn't completely trust the plot from his memories. After all, since his appearance, many changes have occurred in his mind. For example, during this period, the Akatsuki organization did not attract the attention of Hanzo and Denzo Shimura at all. Denzo did not collaborate with Akatsuki members until he set his sights on the Rinnegan, but Nagato hasn't revealed the Rinnegan yet. However, now that Black Zetsu has set his sights on Byakuya and is so interested in him, should he take advantage of this opportunity to turn the tables on Black Zetsu? If he could get Black Zetsu to join the Akatsuki, the rewards would certainly not be few. Although Black Zetsu's achievements are lacking and his raw power may not match Elite Jonin, he is still Kaguya's third child. This Black Zetsu could grant some rewards to Byakuya. It would be great if he could get a chakra fruit, but it's a bit of a dream. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was the day when the envoy from Hanzo arrived to visit. In line with the principle of know thyself, know thy enemy, 100 battles, 100 victories. Byakuya also went to meet the so-called envoy of Hanzo. The other person was a middle-aged man with a single eye, and judging from his chakra level, he appeared to be a high-ranking ninja. However, in his memory, there was only one single-eyed high-ranking ninja from the Hidden Rain village. That person was also an envoy for Hanzo and brought good news to the Akatsuki in the original timeline. Simply put, Hanzo consolidated the nation's diplomatic affairs and outsourced them to the Akatsuki, inviting senior Akatsuki members to meet with foreign envoys. If Yahiko had thought carefully at the time, he should have known that this kind of thing was unreliable, but he still agreed to it. Ultimately, the Akatsuki faced a mass murder. However, from the final result, Hanzo of the Salamander was the ultimate loser. So, while accompanying the single-eyed high-ranking ninja, Byakuya's mouth twitched slightly, but the other party behaved very politely. Byakuya couldn't even provoke him actively. After all, you don't hit a smiling face. The reason why the single-eyed high-ranking ninja was so respectful was also very simple. First, Hanzo had issued strict commands, and second, it was related to the strength of the Akatsuki. After entering the Akatsuki base, he silently calculated the number of Akatsuki members. After discovering that there were dozens of ninjas waiting in the base, his attitude became much more serious, because the meaning represented by a few ninja groups and a ninja organization of over 100 people was completely different. After learning of Hanzo's intention to cooperate with the Akatsuki, Yahiko's smile grew even brighter. Sure enough, Hanzo of the Salamander did not disappoint him. Even though he had been disheartened for a long time, Hanzo of the Salamander was still a hero of the Land of Rain, understanding what was best for his country. After accepting the personal letter, Yahiko turned to the single-eyed high-ranking ninja and invited him to further explore the Akatsuki and began explaining the organization's principles. The single-eyed high-ranking ninja did not refuse. It was, after all, part of his mission. However, after listening to Yahiko's principles, the single-eyed high-ranking ninja frowned directly and his eyes showed signs of doubt. Were the principles of the Akatsuki too far-fetched? In the Land of Rain, a land filled with warfare, famine, and disasters, why would such idealistic principles emerge? How could people possibly understand each other? Yahiko also noticed the doubt in the single-eyed high-ranking ninja and wasted no words, taking him directly to visit a nearby village where the Akatsuki's principles had brought about results. Upon seeing the healthy villagers, the single-eyed high-ranking ninja dispelled his doubts about the Akatsuki's principles. He looked at Yahiko with a newfound respect. This was exactly the kind of talent lacking in the Land of Rain. If Hanzo of the Salamander could truly cooperate with the Akatsuki, in a few years, the Land of Rain would surely be vastly different from now. Thus, in the following days, the single-eyed high-ranking ninja began actively asking about the specifics of the Akatsuki's principles. He wanted to relay all these principles to Hafs. Facing the inquiries of the single-eyed high-ranking ninja, Yahiko naturally spoke openly. If he could convince the Hanzo's envoy here, the likelihood of persuading Hafs would also increase significantly. The Akatsuki needed an official status within the Land of Rain. Moreover, for the Land of Rain, if the Akatsuki and the Hidden Rain village could coexist peacefully, the country could reduce some sacrifices, and the lives of its people would suffer less turmoil. Meanwhile, on another front, Black Zetsu found Byakuya resting in the forest. After investigating the assistant of Hokage and learning that it was Denzo Shimura who contacted Byakuya, Black Zetsu decided to approach Byakuya himself to discuss cooperation. Chapter 63, Black Zetsu interrogates Byakuya. To get close to Byakuya, Black Zetsu considered many methods. For example, deliberately creating a dangerous situation and then rescuing Byakuya himself, thereby shaping an authoritative image in front of Byakuya. However, after careful consideration, Black Zetsu abandoned these ideas. He simply didn't have the ability to put Byakuya in jeopardy, and the ninja who could endanger Byakuya were beyond his capability to deal with. Ultimately, he had inherited longevity from his mother, not strength. If he possessed the powerful strength of his two brothers, he would have long ago revived the Ten Tails and freed his mother from her seal. But these grievances couldn't be blamed on his mother, the blame lay squarely on his unfilially brothers, Hagoromo and Hamura. Clearing his mind of distractions and confirming no other ninjas around, Black Zetsu emerged from the shadows and slowly appeared before Byakuya. Byakuya immediately noticed Black Zetsu and asked sharply, "Who are you?" Byakuya had sensed Black Zetsu's presence long ago, but seeing Black Zetsu reveal himself so easily still surprised him. He had expected Black Zetsu to observe him for a while longer before revealing himself. Entering his performance mode, Black Zetsu spoke softly, "Who I am is not important. What's important is that I know what you want, and your current situation is very dangerous." Byakuya snorted coldly, his expression wary. "You're a sneaky one. Do you really know what I want? But hiding your identity is futile. Once I capture you, I'll naturally know everything." Before he finished speaking, Byakuya formed hand seals with both hands. Dozens of paper shurikens condensed and flew toward Black Zetsu's position, hitting his body. After hitting Black Zetsu, the paper shurikens transformed into explosive tags, blossoming into a splendid explosion. After the smoke cleared, Black Zetsu appeared before Byakuya unscathed. Seeing this scene, Byakuya's expression grew serious. After a brief hesitation, Byakuya began to use sealing jutsu. Golden chains emerged from his body at tremendous speed, shooting towards Black Zetsu. Just as the chains were about to capture him, Black Zetsu slowly raised his palm. Using the wood-style cutting technique as cover, His true body was directly submerged into the ground and reappeared before Byakuya a few seconds later. Seeing that his attempt with the adamantine sealing chains had no effect, Byakuya's face became extremely serious, his gaze piercingly cold. First Hokage's Wood Style? Are you a ninja from Hidden Leaf Village? No, Wood Style has been lost in Hidden Leaf Village for a long time. Which faction's ninja are you exactly? Black Zetsu was pleased with Byakuya's expression, feeling a hint of apprehension himself. If he couldn't intimidate Byakuya, the negotiations ahead would be difficult to continue. Calmly walking up to Byakuya's side, Black Zetsu, with a profound and mysterious expression, said, "Byakuya, we are not enemies. After venting out, can we sit down and talk properly?" After a cold snort from Byakuya, he sat on a large rock nearby and asked, "State your purpose. A strong one like you wouldn't randomly come looking for me. I've already said before, I'm here to help you. I don't need your help. I'm living well now. Soon I'll get everything I want, all by my own strength. Is that so?" Black Zetsu smiled knowingly. "Then why are you here now, instead of in the conference room accompanying the envoy from Hanzo?" Byakuya glanced at Black Zetsu, his eyes filled with caution. "How do you know about the envoy from Hanzo?" Pausing for a moment, Byakuya continued, "Even if you know, so what? I just can't stand the atmosphere in the conference room, so I came out for some fresh air. The Akatsuki will eventually recognize me as their leader. Reality seems to differ from your imagination." Black Zetsu's smile became more unrestrained as he slowly sat down beside Byakuya, his voice carrying a hint of enchantment. "If you were truly confident about becoming the leader of the Akatsuki, you wouldn't collude with ninjas outside the Akatsuki, nor would you secretly cultivate subordinates independent of the Akatsuki. Your actions have exposed your uncertainty. You don't even have confidence in becoming the leader of the Akatsuki, let alone fulfilling your deepest desires. So, during such an important meeting with Hanzo's envoy, you can only sit here alone." Byakuya listened attentively, curious about how he appeared in Black Zetsu's eyes. From those words, it was evident that Black Zetsu had investigated him beforehand and had done his homework seriously before coming. But how did Black Zetsu know his deepest desires? Even Byakuya himself didn't know that. Right now, apart from making the Akatsuki grow stronger, he didn't have any other wishes. What exactly did Black Zetsu imagine when investigating me? Nevertheless, to cooperate with Black Zetsu's performance, Byakuya still displayed a nervous demeanor. Halfway through Black Zetsu's speech, as if provoked, Byakuya hastily stood up, staring fixedly at Black Zetsu and said in a deliberate tone, "How much do you really know about my secrets?" Black Zetsu calmly replied, "I don't know all your secrets, but I know far more than you imagine. Now that I've revealed so many secrets, you should be able to trust that I have no malicious intent. Otherwise, I wouldn't even need to meet you. With this information alone, I could make your life miserable." A hint of panic flashed in Byakuya's eyes, then he regained a calm demeanor. I believe in your abilities, but I don't need your help. I can achieve my dreams on my own. Is that so?" Black Zetsu countered once again. "It may be easy to rebuild the fallen Hidden Village, but those ninjas who caused its downfall haven't perished. Once they learn of Hidden Village's reconstruction, what will they do? How much can the Akatsuki, which you expect to help you, really assist you? Are they truly willing to help you?" After listening to Black Zetsu's consecutive counter-questions, Byakuya fell into a brief silence. So Black Zetsu believed his ideal was to rebuild Hidden Village? Even Black Zetsu knew about his Uzumaki lineage. But he never thought of rebuilding Hidden Village. Did Black Zetsu misunderstand something? Seeing Byakuya fall silent, Black Zetsu was quite satisfied. He directly brought out his trump card and said, "Byakuya, don't even think about using Hidden Leaf Village's help to rebuild Hidden Village. If they really had that intention, they wouldn't have sat back and watched Hidden Village fall. And do you really know who the Hokage assistant you trust is?" "Of course I do." Byakuya silently thought to himself, revealing Black Zetsu's identity. However, in reality, Byakuya looked puzzled, eagerly awaiting an answer. Without hiding anything, Black Zetsu directly stated, "The Hokage assistant you're in contact with is Denzo Shimura, a hawkish figure in Hidden Leaf Village. Besides Hidden Leaf Village's interests, he doesn't care about anything else." Chapter 64, Seeing Through Denzo's True Face. Who is Denzo Shimura? Byakuya muttered the name, his eyes filled with more confusion. For most ninjas in the shinobi world, the name Denzo Shimura didn't hold much weight. Even Hidden Leaf Village's own lower-ranked ninjas hadn't heard much about Denzo. The name Denzo Shimura truly resonated throughout the shinobi world during his candidacy for the 6th Hokage. Black Zetsu seemed to have also realized this, his expression slightly embarrassed. In truth, he hadn't heard much about Denzo's name before either. After several days of investigation, all he could confirm was that Denzo was not a good person and was using Byakuya. And the logic behind using Byakuya was even simpler. Being used by Denzo was worse than using by him. Realizing the awkward atmosphere, Black Zetsu cleared his throat and explained. Denzo Shimura is a schemer who has orchestrated assassinations of daimyo and village leaders across various countries. And has always sought to overthrow the Hokage. It's very dangerous to cooperate with him. Hearing this, Byakuya nodded lightly. Isn't that a good thing? I also want to plan a coup against Yahiko, and Denzo has often patiently taught me. He's a kind senior. And if I can control the Akatsuki, it also aligns with Hidden Leaf Village's interests. From that perspective, there's no conflict of interest between me and Denzo-senpai. But you, appearing before me inexplicably, threatening me with leverage. Black Zetsu thought Byakuya made sense. Compared to a senior ninja with years of assassination experience and high status, his own image as a small Black Zetsu, not even a human, was clearly suspicious and not fully trustworthy. However, everything he said was true. Denzo was indeed using Byakuya. Although he would use Byakuya in the future, for now, he truly wanted what was best for Byakuya and sought to earn his trust by helping him. It was clearly a well-intentioned gesture. I'm doing this for your own good. As Black Zetsu spoke, he felt this didn't quite fit his own character. Byakuya, it seems you won't understand the harsh reality until you witness Denzo's conspiracy against you with your own eyes. Black Zetsu continued after a pause. With that said, Black Zetsu stepped forward, attempting to grab Byakuya's hand to perform the Mayfly technique. Byakuya used the teleportation jutsu to distance himself from Black Zetsu, his expression alert. What are you trying to do? Where are you taking me? Or are you finally revealing your murderous intent? I just want to take you to find Denzo and see his true face. Black Zetsu replied emotionlessly. Why should I trust you? Byakuya remained cautious, but his hesitant gaze betrayed him. After a few seconds of silence, Byakuya took the initiative to use the paper clone technique. He commanded one of his clones to follow Black Zetsu and said, Humphrey, I'll see for myself what this Denzo you speak of is really like. Seeing Byakuya agree to his request, Black Zetsu finally breathed a sigh of relief. First, write a letter to Denzo. We'll follow the letter to find him together and then you can see Denzo's true face. Byakuya nodded, spending a few minutes writing the letter and summoning a ninja hawk. As they watched the ninja hawk fly over the horizon, Black Zetsu emerged from underground again, looking somewhat resigned as he gazed at Byakuya. Now you can come with me to see Denzo. After a bit of a struggle, Byakuya allowed his paper clone to follow Black Zetsu. Without further ado, Black Zetsu had Byakuya emerge from the underground and merge with Byakuya's clone, taking the paper clone with him underground. During the journey to Denzo's hideout, Byakuya once again felt the power of the Mayfly technique. Although he also mastered the Mayfly technique, he couldn't match Black Zetsu's speed. If a typical elite ninja's full speed run was likened to a train, Black Zetsu's Mayfly technique was almost like a high-speed train. Unless encountering solid rock layers, there would be no obstacles at all. Even Obito and later Tobi, through countless instances of the Mayfly technique, collected intelligence from various parts of the shinobi world. Without this, the shinobi world is so vast that relying solely on a few defectors within the Akatsuki wouldn't gather intelligence on the Jinchuriki, let alone capture them. After half an hour, the ninja hawk reached the root base. Byakuya and Black Zetsu also arrived at this base. Upon seeing that the base was located within the borders of the Land of Rain, Byakuya frowned and said, I didn't expect the assistant to the Hokage to set up the base here without notifying me. Hearing this, Black Zetsu smiled inwardly. It was unclear whether he was laughing at Byakuya's innocence or pondering Denzo's foolishness. After obtaining the intelligence scroll from the ninja hawk, the root ninja quickly delivered it to a secret chamber deep within the base. Byakuya and Black Zetsu followed. Upon learning that Byakuya had sent the intelligence scroll, Denzo stroked his chin and smiled. He immediately sent for Ryuma Ibarame to join him in reviewing the letter. Soon, Denzo and Ryuma were together, analyzing Byakuya's letter. Due to the cramped space in the chamber, both Byakuya and Black Zetsu could hear their discussion. Listening to Denzo and Ryuma earnestly analyzing and contemplating their response, Byakuya glanced at Black Zetsu beside him and said, Denzo-senpai didn't mean any harm to me. You're just overthinking it. Black Zetsu remained calm internally and replied to Byakuya, keep watching. They haven't exposed their true intentions yet. Byakuya said no more and focused on observing Denzo and Ryuma's interaction. He used to be the one live-streamed, and now he finally got to watch someone else's reality show. At first, it was the secret interactions between the leaders and high-ranking members of the Root organization. Ryuma, you should pay attention. Byakuya is so sensible. If he weren't a member of the Akatsuki, I would have considered recruiting him to become an elite member of Root. However, the next moment, Byakuya began to question his life choices. It was good that Denzo approved of his letter, indicating that he had gained Denzo's favor and could expect more assistance in the future. But why praise? His actions had actually gained Denzo's approval. This made Byakuya somewhat scared. However, he soon realized that Denzo had fallen into his trap and was actually beginning to seriously consider Akatsuki's direction for the coup, preparing for the future to seize the position of Hokage. But people are different, and his hope of becoming the leader of the Akatsuki is very great. Denzo, on the other hand, is different. Judging from Denzo's behavior and personality, the probability of becoming Hokage is infinitely close to zero. Unless the current Hokage dies violently, even if Minato Namikaze and Jiraiya dies, it will still not be Denzo's turn. In the end, Denzo and Ryoma began to discuss how to deal with Byakuya. Lord Denzo, what should we do next? Let Byakuya assassinate Hanzo's messenger, but this way, he will be exposed. Isn't it our plan to stir up conflict between the Akatsuki organization and the Hidden Rain village? Hearing this, Black Zetsu also said in a faint tone, Byakuya, do you know Denzo's purpose now? He is using you, and when you lose your usefulness, he will give up on you without hesitation. Chapter 65, Black Zetsu's dream. Hearing that Denzo and Ryoma Ibarame wanted him to assassinate Hanzo's envoy, Byakuya felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He staggered back 2 steps before he managed to regain his composure. Byakuya couldn't believe it. The Hidden Leaf village elder he trusted so much would actually use him. Or rather, he was prepared to be used, but he didn't expect Denzo to be so impatient. Asking him to assassinate Hanzo's envoy was no different from sending him to his death in the Land of Rain. Was there no trustworthy ninja in the ninja world? With these thoughts in his mind, Byakuya's face showed a mix of disbelief, betrayal, and unforgivable anger, which eventually turned into a deep sigh as he began his performance. I don't believe this is true. This must be something you're doing on purpose to show me. Black Zetsu glanced at Byakuya and mocked, with your abilities, you should know this isn't a Ganjutsu. I don't have the power to manipulate Hidden Leaf village ninjas to put on this play. Hearing this, Byakuya's expression darkened. Before he began, I know it's true. I've fought with Ryoma Ibarame and I know they've been using me. It's just that I thought our cooperation would last a bit longer. I didn't expect them to want me dead. Don't they think they'll get more benefits by putting me in a leadership position? Black Zetsu said indifferently, you're too naive. Too naive to believe that Denzo would help you. Denzo doesn't trust anyone. For him, everyone is just a pawn to him. Byakuya remained silent. After hearing the conversation between Denzo and Ryoma, White Zetsu brought him back to the Akatsuki base. It all felt like a dream. He dispelled the paper clone and absorbed its memories. Compared to the clone, Byakuya's real self was much more resolute. He said coldly, I know about Denzo's plans. He's using me and wants to send me to my death to provoke a conflict between Akatsuki and the Hidden Rain village. And what about you? I still don't know your identity. You were so eager to reveal yourself to me, speaking ill of Denzo and exposing his schemes. What's your goal? Facing Byakuya's questioning, Black Zetsu replied expressionlessly. I'm here to cooperate with you. Unlike Denzo, at this stage, you don't have the qualifications to be used by me. When you become the leader of Akatsuki and have strength comparable to the 5 Kage, I'll make you work for me. Strength comparable to the 5 Kage, huh? Sounds like a high-end plan you've got there. Pausing for a moment, Byakuya continued, but I've just experienced a betrayal. If you don't clearly explain the content of our cooperation, our partnership ends here. After saying this, Byakuya looked at Black Zetsu with anticipation, wondering if he would reveal the Eye of the Moon plan. Black Zetsu also pondered whether to disclose the Eye of the Moon plan. But after a moment of thought, Black Zetsu decided against it. After all, there weren't many ninjas in the world who could accept the Eye of the Moon plan. For a ninja like Byakuya, who still had memories for the ninja world and aspired to climb higher, another story would be more appealing. My goal is to rule the world. This world has been divided for too long. It needs to be unified. Hearing Black Zetsu's words, Byakuya was stunned. You're planning to collect chakra for the Eye of the Moon plan and ultimately release Kaguya Otsutsuki, right? When did that suddenly turn into ruling the world? Seeing Byakuya's stunned expression, Black Zetsu continued, in the world I envision, there will be no war or conflict. Even Uzumaki ninjas will have a place. Before Black Zetsu could finish, Byakuya interrupted. I'm not like Yahiko and those people. I'm not interested in peace and mutual trust. I only want to rebuild the land of whirlpools and make the Uzumaki clan's name resound throughout the ninja world. And don't talk to me about peace. Those are just excuses to fool people. Now it was Black Zetsu's turn to be bewildered. Aren't all ninjas in the ninja world yearning for world peace? How could there be an anomaly like Byakuya who doesn't even agree with the noble idea of saving humanity? But on further thought, Byakuya was willing to cooperate with Denzo, which meant his moral standards were questionable. However, this also indicated that Byakuya indeed had the ambition to rebuild the land of whirlpools. As long as he had ambition, Black Zetsu could use it to make Byakuya one of the executors of the Eye of the Moon plan. With this in mind, Black Zetsu looked at Byakuya and slowly extended his hand. I promise. As long as our cooperation continues, the name of the Uzumaki clan will definitely resound throughout the ninja world. Byakuya hesitated for a long time before finally extending his hand before they shook hands. After completing the rudimentary alliance ceremony, Byakuya immediately began asking questions. What's your name, sir? Where is our plan? What should we do next? Are there other members besides me? What about our funding sources and member benefits? Faced with a barrage of questions, Black Zetsu's mind momentarily went blank. In the past 1,000 years, he had recruited many reincarnations of Indra, but none had ever asked him such questions. As for funding and member benefits, he had nothing to offer. Seeing Black Zetsu unable to answer his questions, Byakuya frowned. Our organization only has the two of us, right? You think two people can rule the world? Is it your problem or mine? After a long silence, during which his mind raced, Black Zetsu finally responded, My name is Black Zetsu. Our organization has two other members besides us, but their identities are currently confidential. 4 members? That's not much different from the 2. Byakuya said. Byakuya gave a skeptical look before calling Black Zetsu with respect. Lord Black Zetsu, if there are only 4 members, I must decline to join this organization. Ruling the world is a difficult and lengthy plan. He used Lord Socharm the Black Goo relic. After all, he would be going to be a better sponsor than Denzo. We need to establish a sufficiently large nation, with a population of hundreds of millions and an army of hundreds of thousands, to achieve the goal of world domination. And to accomplish this, we must proceed step by step, with at least decades of preparation. First, we must take control of the Akatsuki, dominate the Land of Rain, and then gradually consume Hidden Leaf Village and the surrounding ninja villages. And finally use military strategy to conquer the 5 great nations and rule the world. Byakuya's confident statements left Black Zetsu stunned and deep in thought. The plans and preparations Byakuya mentioned were things Black Zetsu had never considered.